What a strong sword chi and force. What a cruel man. The hearts of the people in the crowd were pounding. What a strong sword chi and force. What a cruel man. The hearts of the people in the crowd were pounding. Besides, the 4 disciples of the Haoyu sect were dumbstruck. In the Celestial Mountain restaurant, they had provoked Lin Feng. Leng Yu had even been extremely aggressive to them. He had immediately threatened them with a blade and attacked the banister next to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had, however, remained silent and incomparably calm. They had thought that he was a timid coward, a weakling, but at that moment, the force and chi which Lin Feng had just released proved to them that if Lin Feng didn't attack them before, it wasn't because he was scared, it was just because they were not fit to be his opponents. When Leng Yu sensed the incomparably sharp energy, he frowned. At that moment, Lin Feng had shown to everybody that he was stronger than Leng Yu. Maybe the real Lin Feng had finally shown himself. However, blade cultivators were sharp, aggressive and had an indomitable will. With their blades, they could annihilate everything. Even if his opponent was extremely strong, Leng Yu remained fearless, he wasn't flinching at all. He was able to condense blade chi. He loved blades, understood blades, grasped how they worked. His nickname, the Blade Master, wasn't just a rumor. Even though he was insufferably arrogant and thought he was the best in the world, he was still a genius. A light flashed, it was the light of the moon-breaking blade. Its light was bright, clear and piercingly cold. It's a Ling-level weapon, the moon-breaking blade. Leng Yu is surprisingly using his new weapon against that guy. How come we've never heard of him before? Thought many people. At that moment, Leng Yu wasn't hesitating, his body like a sharp blade, he became one with his blade. I recognize that I underestimated you, but you are still very far from being as strong as me, said the Blade Master while holding the moon-breaking blade. Leng Yu still thought he was the best and youngest genius in the world, but as before, he remained vigilant in front of Lin Feng. I, Leng Yu, started practicing blade cultivation when I was 5 years old. At the Haoyu sect, there aren't any strong blade skills. I created everything on my own. I understood how to use blade force and how to use energy attacks. I did all of this in the last year. I defeated many of my fellow disciples at the Haoyu sect. That's how I became who I am today. I taught myself a skill called Lonely Shadow. You can die under my created blade attack. I'm proud of it, said Leng Yu. He was speaking slowly. He considered everything and everyone beneath his attention. When the crowd heard him, they were all secretly nodding. Leng Yu was really a genius. He taught himself blade skills and could use energy attacks. He was extremely strong and powerful. Maybe Lin Feng was weaker than him. You don't understand blades. Your talent is that of a mediocre person, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly, and then continued, you cannot rival me. Just like you, I've taught myself sword skills and I have only been practicing for a year. Come and have a try. 1 year. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Feng had been practicing sword skills for only a year. Was it possible to become that strong within a year? Besides, Lin Feng was saying that Leng Yu didn't understand blades, that he was a mediocre cultivator. If he was a mediocre cultivator, what were the people in the crowd? It hurt the pride of many of these people. Alright, remember, the name of my attack that will take your life is Lonely Shadow, said Leng Yu slowly. Then he jumped and didn't release any blade force. Instead, he used his blade to carry out an energy attack. Lonely Shadow, he said in a low voice. A light appeared and invaded the atmosphere as if it had no limit. That was a blade energy attack. That blade was like a person who didn't know which direction to attack from, so it appeared in every direction. Energy attacks, when using a blade, seemed like there were thousands of blades even though there was only one. That shadow-like attack was unfathomable and enigmatic. It seemed like it chased its opponent. Besides, if it touched anyone, nobody would be able to resist the power. Before, Leng Yu required only one attack to kill opponents of the same level as him, even if they were people of the 9th Ling Qi layer, he could easily kill them. That lonely shadow was astonishing. Nobody had ever survived such an energy attack, and at that moment, it would be especially complicated since Leng Yu was carrying it out using a spiritual weapon of higher quality, his precious treasure, the moon-breaking blade. Lin Feng, you will definitely die. That blade attack is unfathomable. The Blade Master really deserves the moon-breaking blade. Bing Yuan was much weaker than him. When the crowd saw that blade, they were astonished. They gradually understood why, when the Blade Master used his blade, people would die. His lonely shadow attack fell from the air. The crowd had the impression that Lin Feng was already cut in two in front of them. A tearing sound spread in the air which made the crowd narrow their eyes. What's going on? The hearts of the people in the crowd were pounding. The moon-breaking blade was descending from the air, like a lonely shadow. However, Lin Feng was patiently waiting in his initial position. In front of him, there was a sword. It was an ordinary sword, however, a blade was pressed against it, the blade was unable to move further. That majestic moon-breaking blade had been stopped by an ordinary sword. How's that possible? The crowd was fixedly staring at the ordinary sword. It couldn't look more ordinary than it did, but it had blocked the powerful blade. Nobody knew how Lin Feng had done that. I told you, you don't understand blades. Calmly said Lin Feng. He was looking at Leng Yu, who looked astonished. He couldn't believe it. Then, the sword slowly moved back. It started emitting a bright and resplendent light. It was dazzling to the eyes. What a brilliant sword! Energy attack. Leng Yu's heart was pounding. He used his blade to carry out an energy attack again, to block the sword in front of him, and at that moment a metallic sound spread in the atmosphere. The moon-breaking blade was blown away and immediately blood was projected into the air. Leng Yu's body was violently pushed backwards. If he hadn't used his blade energy attack, that dazzling sword would have killed him. Lin Feng suddenly raised his hand and caught the flying moon-breaking blade. He then immediately shouted, "Ba Dao." Ba Dao was stupefied. Lin Feng threw the moon-breaking blade to him. His eyes were excited behind his mask. Lin Feng had, as expected, remembered his promise. He had taken the moon-breaking blade and given it to Ba Dao. Even though it was stolen, it didn't matter. Lin Feng had anticipated that Leng Yu would attack him. He knew that even if he didn't get the moon-breaking blade at the auction, sooner or later, the blade would be Ba Dao's blade. Leng Yu lowered his head. There was a long blood trail from his arm which was almost cut off. He was stupefied. He hadn't even had one occasion to strike Lin Feng with his blade. Lin Feng had remained calm and relaxed and had easily blocked all of his attacks. Lin Feng was right, Leng Yu didn't understand blades. He definitely had natural talent, but it was still comparable to that of mediocre people. I taught myself how to use my blade when I was 5 and he has only been using a sword for a year and he's already able to defeat me. Why the hell was I so proud? Where did my arrogance come from? Leng Yu asked himself. He regretted having the reputation of a genius at that moment. I was so proud of my lonely shadow, but he blocked it so easily. Maybe I really don't understand blades. Leng Yu's heart was filled with sadness. He felt completely dispirited. Lin Feng destroyed his arrogance. When Lin Feng noticed that Leng Yu was regretting, Lin Feng smiled coldly. Those who dared to humiliate Meng Qing had to die. Die. Lin Feng took a step, an infinite quantity of sword qi invaded the atmosphere. People's hearts were pounding. Leng Yu was going to get killed by Lin Feng. Was another genius going to take his last breath? Lin Feng's sword was dazzling. At that moment, Leng Yu was absolutely hopeless and dispirited. It seemed like he had given up. He didn't have his fighting spirit anymore. He was just looking at Lin Feng's sword, piercing the atmosphere. There was a mountain of thoughts in his head, he didn't understand what was happening. He had been training hard for 10 years. Get lost. At that moment, a shadow appeared in the distance behind Leng Yu. It looked like a swift and fierce blade shadow. It immediately moved towards In Feng. That person was like a blade and their energy was boundless. Slash. Lin Feng's sword descended from the air. An explosion filled the air. A crevice appeared in the ground. Lin Feng groaned. That extremely swift and fierce blade had reached him, which violently knocked him backwards. The blade is a weapon for strong cultivators. Losing and winning is something that depends on fate. In any case, there is always a cultivator who is stronger than you in this world. Said an extremely loud and mighty voice which filled the sky, then it continued, Leng Yu, no need to be discouraged. I won't kill him, so you can kill him as you wish, with your blade. After that, two silhouettes started to rush into the sky. People's hearts were trembling. There was a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer amongst them. He had stopped Lin Feng to help Leng Yu. He said that he wasn't killing Lin Feng to let Leng Yu do that himself. He was sparing Lin Feng on purpose. Lin Feng, you're very lucky, thought the people in the crowd. But at that moment, the ground started shaking insanely. A white silhouette, which looked like a celestial being, was attacking. In a flash, her silhouette moved towards a distant point. She released an incredible coldness which was freezing people's hearts and thoughts. The only thing left in the area seemed to be coldness. Die! Shouted the ice-cold and voice. In the atmosphere, some ice transformed into a white arrow which rushed towards the figure in the distance. The silhouette in the horizon flickered, their pace accelerated, that blade shadow looked like a shooting star. However, that white arrow was still moving straight towards the silhouette at a much faster speed. Then, that silhouette groaned and blood splashed through the air. Such a move had made the words that they just spoke sound like a joke. If Lin Feng wanted to kill, he could kill as he pleased. It's a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. It's a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. When the crowd saw that white silhouette, who had suddenly appeared, they were stupefied. She attacked and the ice from her attack was shot across hundreds of kilometers. Her speed was also much more incredible than that of the blade shadow. After her attack, blood filled the air. That silent woman, who was always by Lin Feng's side, was actually a strong cultivator. Besides, Bing Yuan and Leng Yu had dared to humiliate her, they wanted to die. If Leng Yu managed to leave alive, that would be a strike of luck. No matter if it was Lin Feng or Meng Qing, they could both easily kill Leng Yu. Who's that person who came to save Leng Yu? He's also a blade user, how surprising. Thought the crowd looking at them from a distance. They didn't know if he was also a strong cultivator of the Hao Yu sect. Why wasn't he showing himself? Why was he hiding his identity? Why was he afraid of showing his true colors? Besides, he had come to save Leng Yu and hadn't even stopped for 1 second. Lin Feng gazed into the distance, he was thinking. That person was a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer and was, just like Leng Yu, a blade cultivator. His blade abilities were extremely advanced. Was he Leng Yu's teacher? Genius of the Hao Yu sect, it would be best for you to not cross my path again. Thought Lin Feng coldly. He then immediately moved towards Bing Yuan's corpse and looked for a ring with a Na stone. That guy had obtained the essence fire of the seven-tailed fox, it couldn't have gone far, he probably had a Na stone to store his items. Besides, the purity stones he had couldn't have come from nowhere. Since Lin Feng had killed him, he had to take his Na stone, otherwise, wouldn't it just be wasted? Lin Feng took the ring from Bing Yuan's finger, blood dripped on the ring, in a flash, information entered Lin Feng's consciousness. A cold qi dispersed into the air, that was Bing Yuan's remaining qi inside the ring. The essence fire of the seven-tailed fox was inside. Besides, there were a few skills and a few purity stones. Lin Feng wasn't interested in these little things, he just wanted the Xian-level essence fire, it was extremely valuable. Bing Yuan had spent an enormous amount of money to buy it, but now, it belonged to Lin Feng. Besides, coupled with his ancient cauldron and the moon-breaking blade which he had stolen from Leng Yu, Lin Feng had managed to take the top 3 items of the auction. Celestial River is abundant in treasures. Lin Feng laughed. On his first day at Celestial River, he had found some spiritual herbs and obtained 3 new treasures. He was particularly happy about the ancient dragon cauldron, which was one of the 10 great cauldrons. Lin Feng felt very lucky. Even though the cauldron didn't seem to be in good shape, except for the carvings which looked alive, it still couldn't be an ordinary object, it was an item shrouded in mystery and secrets. Unfortunately, these 10 ancient cauldrons were too old and Lin Feng didn't know where to find information about them. He didn't know how to use the dragon cauldron either. In the middle of a calm and peaceful night, in a hotel, Lin Feng was in his room, sitting cross-legged on the edge of the bed. He wasn't sleeping, instead, he was investigating his memories as this was his best resource for information. All the memories which had been transmitted to Lin Feng by the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer, no matter if they concerned pill concoction or weapon fabrication, were all priceless. They could never be exchanged for something material. The strong cultivator had given a priceless treasure to Lin Feng. At that moment, some footsteps broke the silence which made Lin Feng's closed eyes oscillate. Immediately after, he opened his eyes. Someone knocked at the door. Lin Feng said, sounding indifferent, "Come in." The door opened itself and a beautiful woman appeared at the door, however, it wasn't Meng Qing at all. Besides, Lin Feng had seen that woman during the day, it was Lan Jiao, the alluring young woman. Even though it was the middle of the night, Lan Jiao was still wearing extremely revealing clothing. At that moment, she had already changed her clothes and put on a fire-red dress. Her snowy white shoulders were still uncovered. Her large chest was still partially revealed, the sight was unbearable, it would drive a man crazy with desire. She's such a seductress. An extraordinarily beautiful woman. Thought Lin Feng when he saw her figure. He looked a bit surprised though, it was the middle of the night, what did Lan Jiao want? Besides, she was wearing such revealing clothes, wasn't she scared for her safety? "Mr. Lin, can I come in?" asked Lan Jiao, still waiting at the entrance while smiling. She had such clear and beautiful eyes, they were enchanting. It seemed like she could steal a man's soul. Lin Feng remained silent for a second and then slightly nodded while saying, "Come in." When Lan Jiao heard him, she entered the room and, without asking Lin Feng's permission, immediately sat down. She smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Mr. Lin, I'm so sorry for bothering you in the middle of the night." Lin Feng slightly shook his head and said, "Miss, what can I help you with? Am I not allowed to come and visit Mr. Lin without needing something?" said Lan Jiao straightforwardly. She was casting flirtatious glances at Lin Feng and her voice was filled with temptation. "Miss Lan Jiao, you came to my room in the middle of the night, this is not the best moment to visit me, things cannot be that simple," said Lin Feng smiling. Lan Jiao was visiting Lin Feng in the middle of the night, was she spying on him? She definitely had ulterior motives. Therefore, Lin Feng's voice also somewhat conveyed sarcasm. "Mr. Lin is insensitive and lacks passion," said Lan Jiao while smiling. She was still staring at Lin Feng in a seducing and alluring way as if she hoped that Lin Feng's heart would eventually melt. But what Lan Jiao didn't know was that Lin Feng could control himself much more than ordinary people when it came to beautiful women. "If I was passionate, I am afraid that you wouldn't be feeling safe right now," said Lin Feng while glancing at her partially revealed chest. His heart was pounding, he was filled with desire. If Lin Feng had a little less willpower and determination, something would definitely get the better of him. "If Mr. Lin feels like being passionate, I don't mind it," said Lan Jiao while smiling. She stood up and walked towards Lin Feng. When she arrived in front of him, all he could see was her white chest. Lan Jiao was doing that on purpose. And it was surprisingly turning him on. Lin Feng didn't know what her motive was though. Since you are vigorously expressing your desire for you to me be passionate, I will be passionate, said Lin Feng, who stood up. He walked towards Lan Jiao, which stupefied her. She couldn't help but take a tiny step backwards, which made Lin Feng smile. Miss Lan, you are seducing me, but you are scared of what I might do. Why is that? Said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent, and then continued, Miss Lan, what is your real purpose for coming here? Lan Jiao was stupefied. Her facial expression was strange. Lin Feng was surprisingly turning a blind eye to her seduction. Could it be that she wasn't seducing enough for him? If you are wondering where Lin Feng's secret powers of seduction come from, look no further. Why do you think that I necessarily have a hidden reason for coming to visit you? Why do you think that I necessarily have a hidden reason for coming to visit you? When Lan Jiao heard Lin Feng, her eyes turned wet and she had a pitiful expression. She took a tiny step forward. Only a few inches were separating her and Lin Feng. Besides, when did I say that I was scared of what you would do? If you like my body, you can have it. Her voice, which was gradually becoming softer and softer, she sounded shy yet was filled with endless temptation. Lin Feng was observing Lan Jiao. She lowered her head and looked extremely shy, her cheeks turned entirely red. Her dress slowly slid along her shoulders. Her snowy white breasts were becoming more and more revealed. Lin Feng was absolutely captivated by the view. He was staring at her dress, which was sliding down her shoulders. Only a tiny bit more and he would discover what was under her dress. Do you want to see? Asked Lan Jiao, sounding extremely seductive. Lin Feng's heart was like a horse galloping at full speed. He then said, I do. When Lin Feng said that, Lan Jiao's dress had finally started to fall. It slowly slid down her body until it softly landed on the floor. Her plentiful bosom was revealed before Lin Feng's eyes. They were soft and snowy white, they almost looked unreal. Lin Feng wanted to stretch out his hand and gently caress her voluptuous bosom. That thought gave birth to endless desires in his heart. Lin Feng's heart, at that moment, was burning evilly. A small flame of desire had turned into an inferno. Do you want me, Master Lin? Her voice was filled with endless seduction and it triggered an explosion in Lin Feng's heart. His heart was filled with a scorching desire. He was unable to free himself from the endless desire. After all, he was still a young man. Apart from Duan Xinyi, he had never seen the naked body of another woman. He had also never had so much temptation before him. He had the impression that he was going insane. At that moment, Lin Feng's face was entirely red. He slowly raised his hands and moved them towards her plentiful bosom. I can't, thought Lin Feng, alarmed. His hands were hovering in the air. He was sobering up. There's something wrong, this is not right. She was wearing something under her dress, why would she suddenly be naked right now? Lin Feng could think a little bit more clearly at that moment. He realized that the situation wasn't real. He slightly closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He used earth fusion and started to perceive everything around him. Lin Feng opened his eyes. It seemed like his illusion was slowly dissipating like the moon reflected on a lake. At that moment, Lan Jiao was standing there and smiling. She was still wearing her dress. Even though she was wearing very revealing clothing, she still wasn't naked. A moment ago, Lin Feng had a hallucination. What's going on? Lin Feng's pupils shrank. Everything that had just happened was an illusion, but Lin Feng had the impression that it was absolutely real. Mr. Lin, what are you thinking about? Lan Jiao was staring at Lin Feng. She smiled, but her smile was hiding something deeper. Lin Feng was stupefied, he was speechless. He couldn't tell Lan Jiao that, a moment before, he was thinking about caressing her body, but it had just been an illusion. A moment ago, I saw an illusion. said Lin Feng when he saw that Lan Jiao was smiling. He couldn't be fooled. Lin Feng, in the 6 previous months, had been learning how to condense pure qi, how to concoct pills. He had also learnt about the surplus souls technique. He had been drowning himself in the memories of the strong cultivator. He hadn't practiced cultivation to improve his level of strength, but his power had already reached the peak of the 8th Ling Qi layer. Besides, he could use the earth fusion and had an iron willpower, but he had still been imprisoned in an illusion. Obviously, Lan Jiao had been the one who had used the illusion against him, making his heart abandon itself to desire. That arousing illusion had managed to make him confused. Lan Jiao was extremely strong. She wasn't a simple auctioneer at the Dream Pavilion, it couldn't be that simple. With such strong people, how terrifying was the Dream Pavilion. Miss Lan, even though it was just an illusion, everything I saw was real, it was really your body that I saw. Could it be that you are actually scared of what I might do, which is why you used an illusion? Said Lin Feng, surprisingly admitting what he had seen. You're wrong, said Lan Jiao while smiling. Her seductive eyes were staring at Lin Feng. She then continued, the things that you saw were indeed true, but I just guided the illusion. If you hadn't thought about it and wanted it to go in that direction, it wouldn't have happened that way. Actually, even though the illusion was not real, the things that you saw were real, so you guessed right concerning that part. That had nothing to do with strength, it was just that Lin Feng had been too careless. He hadn't expected to be the victim of an illusion. He didn't even know precisely when the illusion started. Lan Jiao's illusion looked too real, as if illusion and reality had merged together in Lin Feng's mind. So you have displayed your abilities, now tell me why you came, said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. He had experienced Lan Jiao's power. Next time, he wouldn't be fooled and fall into her trap again. The earth fusion was an incredible dimension. He just had to activate it and he would be able to perceive everything around him distinctly. Just like a moment before, when he had come back to reality, however, it wouldn't be so simple against a stronger cultivator. Mr. Lin, since you are so impatient to know, I will tell you immediately, said Lan Jiao while smiling. She then continued, Mr. Lin, I came to ask you to join us. Join you? At the Dream Pavilion? Lin Feng was surprised. He hadn't anticipated that she would make such an offer. In a way, but not just that, there is more than just the Dream Pavilion, said Lan Jiao while smiling. Lin Feng's heartbeat accelerated. More than just the Dream Pavilion. What Lan Jiao was probably trying to tell him was that the Dream Pavilion was only a front for their strength, nothing more. I'm sorry, I'm not interested, said Lin Feng, immediately refusing her offer. Lan Jiao's smile became rigid for a second. I'm not done talking. Why do you need to refuse so hastily? Said Lan Jiao while smiling again. She then slowly said, Mr. Lin, if you join us, you will benefit from an infinite amount of cultivation resources, extremely powerful martial skills and agility techniques. You will be able to enjoy all these benefits as much as you wish. Besides, the illusion that you just saw could also become reality. She was trying to seduce him again, martial skills, agility techniques, cultivation resources. Besides, he would also be able to have her. Everything was very tempting. I'm sorry, I'm not interested, said Lin Feng while smiling yet sounding stricter, leaving no space for doubt, which surprised Lan Jiao. Not interested? Wasn't he interested in obtaining all the powerful agility techniques and martial skills that he wished? Or wasn't he interested in her? Could it be that Lin Feng didn't find her attractive? She felt a bit hopeless. She was giving her best to entice Lin Feng, but it didn't seem to work at all. She hadn't thought that would be a possibility. Lin Feng didn't need martial skills and agility techniques, he had the memories from the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer. In these memories, there were many powerful martial skills and agility techniques to the extent that it even had things like the surplus soul technique. Women, except when it came to seduction, couldn't rival Meng Qing when it came to purity and beauty. even Duan Xin was much better in comparison to Lan Jiao, besides, she was also more elegant. Joining them also implied less freedom and he would need to complete certain tasks. Obviously, that wasn't something that Lin Feng desired, therefore he wasn't even considering the offer. Mr. Lin, do you know who the person was that saved Leng Yu? You shouldn't have provoked them. Your life might be in danger now, said Lan Jiao, sounding like she wasn't about to give up. Are you done talking? Said Lin Feng while staring at Lan Jiao. Because Lin Feng didn't agree even though she was saying such tempting things, she was now trying to scare him. Lan Jiao was stupefied. Lin Feng continued, if you are done talking, just leave. You are a girl and you are in my room, if people noticed, then their rumors would be spread, maybe you don't care about those rumors but I do care. Said Lin Feng. Lan Jiao was fixedly staring at him. She looked offended. Humph. Groaned Lan Jiao. She was furiously glaring at Lin Feng. Then, she left Lin Feng's room. In the middle of the night, outside of the Celestial Mountain restaurant, some people were walking by. In the middle of the night, outside of the Celestial Mountain restaurant, some people were walking by. What a seductive lady, how pretty. When they saw Lan Jiao run away from the restaurant, a drunk man walked towards her. Oh, such a beauty, how white. Ha ha ha. That drunk man was staring at Lan Jiao's breasts and looked evilly. Is that so? Do you want to see? Said Lan Jiao while smiling. The drunk man's eyes suddenly became particularly brilliant, he was drooling. I do. The crowd was fixedly staring at Lan Jiao. Well, all of you, look carefully. Said Lan Jiao with a bewitching smile on her face immediately after. Her dress slowly slid down her body which made them all breathless for a second, they were fixedly staring at these two snowy white breasts. However, a moment after, they stopped seeing her breasts which they desired so much, instead, blood splashed through the atmosphere. A few horrible shrieks broke the silence of the night. All those who had been looking at Lan Jiao were dead on the ground. Some people came see what was happening, there was a wave of cold qi in the atmosphere. It was very cold. People didn't dare look at Lan Jiao anymore though. They wouldn't be able to seduce such an attractive woman. In the distance, a group of white silhouettes were approaching, they were carrying a palanquin. There were 4 people and they were all wearing white clothes. They looked extremely nimble and were extremely quick. These pure and holy white silhouettes seemed like they were flying through the air which made them look like ghosts or celestial beings. In a flash, they arrived in front of the crowd. However, at that moment, they disappeared and instantly appeared in the distance and then vanished onto the horizon. How fast! The crowd was astonished. They had disappeared in a flash. What about the attractive girl? Said someone surprised. Immediately after, the crowd turned around and looked in Lan Jiao's direction. They were astonished, there was nobody. Lan Jiao surprisingly had disappeared too. And that palanquin? The enigmatic white silhouettes were, as before, on the road, shuttling back and forth. On the palanquin, there was a beautiful middle-aged woman looking at Lan Jiao with a fake smile on her face. She said, "Why is Jiao Jiao so furious?" "Aunt Yun, your suggestion was stupid," said Lan Jiao sounding annoyed. She had a long face. "Why? How come? Considering how seductive you are, you didn't manage to tempt him?" asked Aunt Yun while smiling. "Aunt Yun, I perfectly know that you are making fun of me, that bastard will see," said Lan Jiao while hitting her fist in the palm of her other hand. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Lin Feng was detestable. She had used her 1,000 evil illusions skill and Lin Feng had remained unaffected, she had even showed him her own body. She felt humiliated, her face had been slapped. "Jiao Jiao, haven't you studied the 1,000 evil illusions? Coupled with your cultivation level and your beauty, how could you lose? Said Aunt Yun. Lan Jiao was stupefied and said, how could I use the 1,000 evil illusions against him? Besides, I said that I had learnt that skill, but it was just a joke, nothing more. Don't misunderstand, said Lan Jiao while lowering her head. She didn't dare look at Aunt Yun, she felt ashamed. She didn't seem to be the same woman as when she was facing Lin Feng. At that moment, she looked like a little girl. Is that so? Said Aunt Yun while smiling. Her smile seemed deep and profound. No wonder you were defeated. Lin Feng has set a city on fire, traveled into another country to save the princess. His willpower and determination are tempered like steel. Jiao Jiao, if you had submitted yourself to him directly, I would have despised him. Huh? Lan Jiao was surprised. She had actually really used the 1,000 evil illusions, and on top of that, it was the first time that she used it. However, she had lost, that's why she was furious. The scariest part was Lin Feng's last words. He had said that she didn't care about her reputation, but he did care about his. It made her look cheap and shameless. But Aunt Yun's opinion made sense in a way. If she had submitted herself to Lin Feng, she wouldn't have been so alluring any longer. That is why she had used the 1,000 evil illusions, which was extremely powerful. Lin Feng falling for it was a normal thing. Jiao Jiao, it's been a few days, now that the news is already spreading amongst those at the top, the treasure has come to light, but we don't know anything else, that's all. Wait for a few more days and we will hear. After receiving the treasure, you will not need to stay here anymore. Your training will come to an end. Said Aunt Yun, sounding mysterious. Lan Jiao had been in Celestial River for a long time. Go back. Whispered Lan Jiao. She looked perplexed. On the second day, in the Dream Pavilion, there were still 10 objects to be sold at the auction. One of the things which amazed the crowd the most was a D-level skill. Even though it was lower quality, it was still a D-level skill. They were brutally strong, that wasn't a skill which you could find anywhere. Apart from a large influential group or sect, ordinary people relied on themselves to gain benefits. It was very difficult for them to acquire skills of the D-level and above. In the Dream Pavilion, a D-level skill had appeared, of course it was making the crowd go wild. In the end, it was obtained by someone who spent 10,000 purity stones of medium quality to acquire it. It was a monstrous price. Besides, there were other treasures in that auction sale, a spiritual weapon. It was a spiritual weapon of medium quality. Someone bought it for 10,000 purity stones of medium quality as well. After the end of the auction, Lan Jiao looked at the booth where Lin Feng had been on the day before. At that moment, there was nobody in that broken booth. Lin Feng hadn't come to pick up his purity stones either. Where is Lin Feng? At that moment, an angry voice and loud shout spread through the atmosphere. A silhouette was flying through the air towards the auction room. People in the crowd were immediately moving aside to open the way. Immediately after, that silhouette landed onto the ground and released some deadly chi which astonished the crowd. They were all looking at the entrance of the auction room. They only saw a majestic-looking young man who was bald and there was a black burn on their head. It looked horrible, but nobody dared make fun of them. People who were near him were moving backwards, fearing that he would get furious and kill them. Lin Feng, show yourself! Shouted the man coldly. It seems like Tujio has come for the essence fire. Thought the people in the crowd. On the day before, Lin Feng had killed Bing Yuan and had made Leng Yu move back with one sword strike. His name was already famous in Celestial River, many people knew who he was. Lin Feng was known for all the insane things that he had done. That outstanding young man was the amazing hero who had set a city on fire. No wonder he was that aggressive and had immediately killed Bing Yuan. Besides, he had nearly killed Leng Yu as well. However, even though his name had become famous, it also meant more trouble. Everybody knew that he had stolen the beast essence fire. Besides, he had many enemies in Celestial River. Tu Jiu was one of them. Besides, he particularly liked that fox fire. What scared people as well was that Tu Jiu had a deep background in Celestial River. He didn't fear Lin Feng, even if a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer was with him. Lan Jiao frowned. She saw Tu Jiu and thought, Lin Feng, what will you do this time? Tu Jiu had an influential background, he was extremely strong and was close to a breakthrough into the Xian Qi layer. Bing Yuan and Leng Yu were weaklings in comparison. Bing Yuan had acquired the fox fire. Instead of leaving Celestial River, he decided to try and kill Lin Feng. In the end, he had lost his life instead. Lan Jiao returned into the back room of the auction. Aunt Yun then said in a low voice, Jiao Jiao, Lin Feng hasn't come yet to pick up his purity stones. You could deliver them to him. Ah. Lan Jiao was stupefied. Help Lin Feng and bring the purity stones to him. All right. I have the purity stones, let's see how he will receive me. Said Lan Jiao, Jiao Jiao, you cannot violate the rules of the Dream Pavilion. Said Aunt Yun while shaking her head and smiling. Don't worry Aunt Yun, I will just make him undergo some hardships. Said Lan Jiao who was thinking of a plan to deal with Lin Feng. Her eyes were twinkling. Aunt Yun handed the purity stones to Lan Jiao. Lan Jiao immediately left afterwards. While looking at her vanishing silhouette, Aunt Yun smiled and said, Jiao Jiao, you need someone to set rules for you, otherwise you're too disobedient. Lan Jiao left the auction and headed towards Lin Feng. Tu Jiu had also learnt that Lin Feng wasn't there. He was determined to go to every corner of the city to look for him. He had to obtain that beast's essence fire. Besides, at the same time, in the ice and snow mountain village which was covered with snow, a group of white horses were galloping at full speed towards the mountain, leaving their footprints in the snow. It seemed like they didn't feel cold at all. The best core disciple of the ice and snow mountain village had been killed in Celestial River. That was shocking news for everybody in the village. In the Celestial restaurant, Lin Feng sat at a table, drinking while lost in thought. In the Celestial restaurant, Lin Feng sat at a table, drinking while lost in thought. He didn't feel like rushing to the Dream Pavilion to collect his purity stones. The Dream Pavilion wasn't going to disappear anytime soon. Have you heard that recently there's a treasure that has appeared in Celestial River? Said a soft voice. It drew many people's attention. What do you mean by recently? How long ago? I also heard that there's a treasure here but nobody has found it. How could that really be the case? It would have caused people to talk and the news would have spread. Everybody would have been talking about it in Celestial River. The news would have spread quickly. Humph, it's just not the way you think it is, that's all. Every treasure is different, not every treasure has the same reaction. These two people were both gossiping about the latest rumors. They were speaking more and more loudly, as if they feared that other people couldn't hear their discussion. A treasure? Does the ancient dragon cauldron count as one? Lin Feng said while smiling and shaking his head. Lin Feng. At that moment, a voice shouted his name, surprising Lin Feng. He looked down and saw Lan Jiao. Lin Feng was suspicious. What did she want? Lin Feng. The people in the restaurant were stupefied. They followed Lan Jiao's eyes and saw Lin Feng. He was Lin Feng. He was the genius who killed Bing Yuan and defeated Leng Yu with one sword attack. Lan Jiao went up to the first floor and walked towards Lin Feng. She didn't look furious any longer. Her seductive smile appeared on her face again. Lan Jiao walked towards Lin Feng's table and said, Lin Feng, are you not happy to see me? Lin Feng raised his head, looked at Lan Jiao and indifferently said, You are wearing more clothing today, you don't feel like showing me your body anymore. Lan Jiao was exasperated. A cruel expression appeared in her eyes. What would the others who heard that think about her? What a bastard. Lin Feng, I have your 20,000 purity stones of medium quality. Lan Jiao said while smiling coldly. Lin Feng was making fun of her, so she wanted to teach him a lesson. Hand them over. Lin Feng said while sipping on his drink, looking indifferent. Lan Jiao was stupefied again. Do you think that it will be that easy? Lan Jiao said while smiling coldly. Lin Feng slowly raised his head and said, is that how the Dream Pavilion handles their affairs? This is my way of doing things and it has nothing to do with the Dream Pavilion. If you want your purity stones, you have to make me happy. Lan Jiao said while smiling coldly. Lin Feng was fixedly staring at her and looked absolutely expressionless, which made Lan Jiao feel uneasy. Give them to me, said Lin Feng, sounding ice-cold. Some cold qi surrounded Lan Jiao's body. That coldness made Lan Jiao stop smiling. She gnashed her teeth and said, what if I don't give them to you? If you don't give them to me? Lin Feng said while looking ice-cold. He stood up, released some more ice-cold qi and said, I advise you to think carefully. Lan Jiao was blankly staring at Lin Feng, her face turning red. Lin Feng's pupils shrank. He didn't understand Lan Jiao's facial expression. What did it mean? That woman had used an illusion skill on him during the night, she even tried to scare him. All of this gave birth to aversion in Lin Feng's heart, he didn't feel like talking to her anymore. And then, at that moment, she had come to him and was threatening to not give him his purity stones. Lin Feng found all of this terribly annoying. Lin Feng, you're such a bastard. Lan Jiao said while throwing a small bag onto Lin Feng's table. Immediately after, she turned around and left. Lan Jiao was starting to hate Lin Feng. During the night, she had used the 1,000 evil illusions on him and it had not worked at all. Then, at this moment, she had just gone to the restaurant to give Lin Feng his purity stones. She was just teasing him, she was hoping to apologize to Lin Feng, but he immediately threatened her and released some cold qi as if he did not want to waste time speaking with her. Her heart felt painful. She also had another purpose for coming. She didn't feel like admitting it, but she had actually come to give him a warning. Tu Jiu was looking for Lin Feng. He wanted to take his beast essence fire. She feared that he wouldn't need much time before he would find Lin Feng at the Celestial Mountain restaurant. Lan Jiao was leaving the restaurant and insulting Lin Feng in her thoughts. That bastard should just die, she didn't care. Tu Jiu definitely wanted to kill Lin Feng. Lan Jiao hadn't known Lin Feng for a long time, but she knew that he would never hand over the beast essence fire, therefore, Tu Jiu would definitely kill him. I will let you die then. Cruel thoughts were passing through Lan Jiao's mind, but her steps were getting slower with each thought. She then stopped. She was lost and didn't know what to do. I can't. Wouldn't it be bad to let Lin Feng die to Tu Jiu? Lan Jiao thought. She then slowly turned around. Indeed, she didn't want to let Lin Feng die that way. She started taking quick and large strides, almost running back to the restaurant. She arrived in front of Lin Feng. You came back again. What do you want? Lin Feng said when he saw Lan Jiao. He was surprised and didn't understand what she wanted. Lan Jiao gnashed her teeth, she was fixedly staring at Lin Feng before she said, you should leave as soon as possible, there is someone who is coming to kill you. Kill me? Lin Feng said surprised. He then immediately smiled and said, many people want to kill me. This time it's not the same. It's Tu Jiu, he wants to take the beast essence fire away from you. Tu Jiu is at the peak of the Ling Qi layer. Nobody of the Ling Qi layer can fight against him. If you don't give him the beast essence fire, he will kill you. Warned Lan Jiao. At the peak of the Ling Qi layer. Nobody of the Ling Qi layer can fight against him, whispered Lin Feng. Lin Feng was curious to see if a cultivator of the peak of the Ling Qi layer could kill him if he didn't hand over the beast essence fire. When Lan Jiao saw that Lin Feng was smiling, she couldn't help but shout, Tu Jiu could find you any time now. You should leave as quickly as possible or he will kill you. When Lin Feng heard Lan Jiao, he raised his head and surprisingly smiled at her. Lan Jiao had been kind to come back and warn him. It seemed like he had misunderstood her, but Lin Feng still disliked her behavior. I'm sorry. Lin Feng said while looking apologetic. Lan Jiao was surprised. That bastard was using this moment to apologize. You will not be able to escape unless you hurry up and leave, bastard. Cursed Lan Jiao. Lin Feng wasn't moving at all. Lin Feng slowly shook his head and then heard a voice coming from outside. No need to try and leave, that won't be possible. When Lan Jiao heard that ice-cold voice, her facial expression became rigid. It was over for Lin Feng. That bastard had not listened to her and chose not to escape while he had the chance. Lin Feng. Get your ass over here. A loud voice shouted, filling the atmosphere and sharply pierced people's eardrums. The people in the restaurant were shocked. Surprisingly, someone dared talk that way to Lin Feng, after everything that he was known for. Lin Feng was surprised as well. Who was Tu Jiu? Why was he that arrogant? Lin Feng stood up and started walking. He was slowly walking down the stairs and then, he left the restaurant. At that moment, outside of the restaurant, there were many people, but most of them were watching from afar. There was a single bald man who looked aggressive and imposing. He was staring at Lin Feng and the expression in his eyes was sharp. Are you Lin Feng? Said Tu Jiu coldly as he looked at Lin Feng. Indeed. It seems that you and me are not enemies, right? Said Lin Feng indifferently. Indeed, we are not enemies. Hand over the fox fire. Then, screw off and I will pretend as if nothing happened. Threatened Tu Jiu. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. Tu Jiu had come to find Lin Feng. His behavior made him look majestic and imposing. Nobody within the Ling Qi layer could fight against him and he was not scared of a cultivator in the Xian Qi layer. He also had a powerful background, which is why he was acting so rudely. You want the beast essence fire? Lin Feng said a bit surprised. He then coldly continued, I obtained the essence fire when I killed Bing Yuan. If you want it, I can give it to you in exchange for something else. If you have something of worth, you can obtain it. You want the beast essence fire? Lin Feng said a bit surprised. He then coldly continued, I obtained the essence fire when I killed Bing Yuan. If you want it, I can give it to you in exchange for something else. If you have something of worth, you can obtain it. Are you trying to negotiate with me? Tu Jiu said while smiling evilly. In Celestial River, almost nobody can disobey me. All the people of the Ling Qi layer who dare contradict me die. I advise you to think it over. What do you prefer, your life or the essence fire? When the people in the crowd heard that, they shook their heads. How brutally aggressive. That guy was at the peak of the Ling Qi layer, he was invincible below the Xian Qi layer. Besides, he had incredible power in Celestial River, so people who dared to offend him were not high in number. Lin Feng surprisingly dared to provoke Tu Jiu. If he didn't accept to hand over the essence fire, he would unfortunately lose his life. Do you want to die, or do you want to hand over the essence fire? Tu Jiu said, giving Lin Feng a choice. Lin Feng was calmly standing there. He coldly glanced at Tu Jiu and said, all those who say that they will kill me usually end up getting killed by me, for example Bing Yuan. So now, what do you prefer? Getting out of my sight, or dying here? Leave or die? Everybody was stupefied. Not only had Lin Feng not replied to Tu Jiu, but he was also giving his own options. He even looked calm and frivolous. Lin Feng was threatening Tu Jiu in Celestial River. Did Tu Jiu want to leave or did he want to die? That was audacious enough. You are going to die, said Lan Jiao, who was standing behind Lin Feng. Lin Feng was insane. Bing Yuan was very strong and was a disciple of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, but Tu Jiu was much stronger. He was at the very summit of the Ling Qi layer. His strength was monstrously close to breaking through to the Xian Qi layer. Not only was Lin Feng not acting docile, but he was also threatening Tu Jiu. Did he want to die? As expected, when Tu Jiu heard Lin Feng, an evil smile appeared on his face. He then evilly said, "You are the first cultivator of the Ling Qi layer who dares to threaten me in Celestial River. Therefore, your death will be brutal and painful." Tu Jiu said while gesticulating, his smile looking ice-cold and cruel. "Arf!" roared Tu Jiu, sounding like a ferocious beast. Immediately after, his body transformed into a black shadow and vanished. His right hand had transformed into a claw and he started to balance on a single foot. Tu Jiu's claws started moving towards Lin Feng, emitting a white light which filled the atmosphere. That horrible beast-like claw was going to skewer Lin Feng. This claw was extremely fast as it rushed towards Lin Feng. It could easily skewer people's flesh and muscles. Coming into contact with it would leave deep wounds on one's body. Lin Feng was going to die for having offended Tu Jiu, that was inevitable. The crowd was silent. Lin Feng noticed that this swift and fierce claw was moving towards him. He was a bit surprised. He had the feeling that, what he was facing at that moment was a ferocious beast, an eagle-type beast. Surplus souls appeared in the atmosphere. They all had looked like smaller versions of Lin Feng's soul and they copied his movements. At the same time, these dark souls all slowly raised their finger and thrust towards the claw as a power emerged from these souls. Lin Feng was not dodging, on the contrary, he was attacking with a single finger. Clying. A subtle metallic sound spread in the atmosphere. When the claw collided with Lin Feng's attack, they were both forced back a few steps. Tu Jiu's hand was still in the form of eagle claw, but in the middle of his palm, there was a red drop of blood. A moment before, Lin Feng's finger had been perfectly accurate. Besides, it had also managed to pierce through as if it had been a sword. Lin Feng had a mark on his hand. Even though Tu Jiu's claw had not touched him, the power of the claw had left a mark on his hand. Besides, his fingers were feeling numb as well. Tu Jiu's claw was extremely sharp and he was much stronger than Lin Feng assumed. "You're good, but as before you will die," Tu Jiu said with an evil smile. Something strange was happening, a light flashed around his body and at that moment, it seemed like he turned into a hideous eagle with extremely sharp claws. The sight was shocking to watch. Tu Jiu was emitting some piercing cries. He started moving through the air, many shadows appearing, they all belonged to Tu Jiu. An incredible white light invaded the atmosphere. It seemed like multiple of Tu Jiu's shadows were moving towards Lin Feng with their claws, aiming to kill. The entire atmosphere was filled with his shadows. It was difficult to distinguish if they were real or fake. The white light flashed in front of Lin Feng's eyes, he slightly inclined his body to one side and the white light hurtled by him at incredible speed, not hurting him at all. But immediately after, the endless and evil white light grew even brighter as the attacks continued. Lin Feng's silhouette slightly flickered. Each of his steps were perfect, soft and agile. That way, he was able to avoid the attacks which were supposed to be deadly. At that moment, Lin Feng looked elegant, agile and skillful. He was in the middle of an endless flurry of claw strikes, shuttling back and forth. He was dodging these strikes with extreme skill. "Aw!" A sharp sound spread in the atmosphere. The myriad of white lights merged together and transformed into a pair of gigantic claws. It really seemed like it belonged to a gigantic and monstrously strong ferocious beast. It seemed like these gigantic claws were over a meter in size. Lin Feng was directly under one of these claws and had nowhere to go, he could not escape. It's almost the end. Lin Feng is going to die. People in the crowd were looking at Tu Jiu. He really looked like an evil beast. Lin Feng was a prisoner under these claws. He was going to be ripped into pieces. Lan Jiao's mouth was wide open, her face was deathly pale. Lin Feng was really going to die. Lin Feng's silhouette was completely enveloped by the claws. He was looking at Tu Jiu, who looked like an evil eagle, and coldly smiled. An incredible purple energy burst forth. It looked like a huge purple lake. Then, countless purple tentacles appeared and rushed through the air towards the claws, entangling them and restricted them. Immediately after, the claws were completely drowned in the purple spirit. At that moment, the claws were still descending towards Lin Feng, however, Lin Feng's purple lake was blocking the trajectory of the claws. The claws had been completely covered by the purple lake. Ah! A horrible shriek filled the air. The claws disappeared. Tu Jiu raised his hand, his cruel-looking face was deathly pale. At that moment, there was flesh bubbling and melting on his hand. His skin had been peeled off and his flesh had started to melt. The bones and muscles on his hand were now visible. It looked extremely painful. A moment before, the purple lake had melted part of his hand. At that moment, behind Lin Feng's back, there was the purple lake which was now emitting some bubbling sounds. Besides, there was a purple tentacle weaving through the air like a snake. People were shivering at the sight. Tu Jiu was at the peak of the Ling Qi layer. No cultivator of the Ling Qi layer could defeat him. How amazing! Thought the people in the crowd at that moment when they saw Lin Feng. That purple lake was monstrously strong. The evil eagle's claws had melted and Tu Jiu had been injured. Lan Jiao was also looking at Lin Feng. She was blinking her beautiful eyes. Could it be that she had been too worried about Lin Feng? I want you to die, shouted Tu Jiu, sounding glum while staring at Lin Feng. I gave you two choices, to get the hell out of my sight or to die, you didn't leave so you will die. Lin Feng said, sounding ice-cold, his face filled with killing intent. At that moment, he was calm, his heart was filled with pride and determination. I will die, Tu Jiu said while smiling coldly. I know everything there is to know about the Ling Qi layer, I seldom have opponents. Apart from relying on my spirit and my claws, I can also rely on something much stronger, I am able to use pure qi. I am a hair away from the Xian Qi layer and can condense pure qi. We will see how you intend to block my next attack. An incredible light started to gather around Tu Jiu's body. A ball of light appearing in his hand, it looked like it was a ball of pure lightning, some thunderous booms spread in the atmosphere. The ball was filled with deadly qi. There isn't only pure deadly qi, there is also some pure lightning qi. When the crowd saw that move, they were stupefied. Tu Jiu was using his best move against Lin Feng. No cultivator of the Ling Qi layer could resist an attack from pure qi. Lin Feng was very strong and had high talent, but under the power of a pure qi attack, which was generally used by cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, he would be exterminated. What a pity! He was such a genius and he was going to die so tragically. But Lin Feng was, as before, not worried. He was calm and was looking at Tu Jiu. He then slowly said, "You're always the one who attacks everyone first, shouldn't we take turns? Now, it should be my turn." Huh? The crowd was stupefied. Take turns. The opponent already had a ball of pure lightning qi in his hand, but Lin Feng wanted to take turns. Immediately after, they saw Lin Feng had started walking. In a flash, an incredible battle energy spread across the sky and consumed the atmosphere. It was burning and whirling around Lin Feng's body. In the battle energy, there was something sharp. It was sword energy. Lin Feng slowly raised his hand. A whistling sound emerged in the atmosphere. An insanely strong white hurricane of energy appeared. That white hurricane progressively transformed into an extremely sharp sword. It was filled with brutally strong and piercing qi. The light emitted by that sword was dazzling to the eyes, making everyone who saw it close their eyes for a moment. A sword made of pure qi. The crowd was astonished. Their hearts were pounding. That white sword was illuminating the entire area, and it was made out of condensed pure qi. Tu Jiu had created a ball of lightning using pure qi, and Lin Feng created a sword. Attacks using pure qi were mysterious and hard to grasp, but Lin Feng had never given up and practiced with tenacity until he could master condensing of pure qi to a perfect state. He had managed to reach perfection and was thus able to create a sword from condensed pure qi. What a terrifying guy! The crowd was dumbstruck. Both of the fighters were using pure qi to fight. One was a ball of terrifying lightning while the other was a dazzling sword. Who was going to win that battle? Our world is extremely vast, who can say that they are invincible? Especially when you are so young and have only broken through to the Ling Qi layer. Not only are you shameless but you are also ignorant. Being such a fool. So pitiful, so sad. Lin Feng was staring at Tu Jiu and continued, sounding cold and detached, the pure qi that you're using to create your lightning is condensed from the qi of the natural world, however, the pure qi of my sword, I condensed it myself. I've been slowly condensing it step by step until I could slowly forge a sword of pure qi. I will show you how pitiful you are for thinking that no cultivator of the Ling Qi layer was worth your time. Lin Feng's words pierced through Tu Jiu's arrogance and raised doubts in his heart. He was starting to doubt his own abilities. Besides, Lin Feng's battle energy had invaded the atmosphere as well, it was in a constant battle with the energy in the atmosphere, his sword seemed like it would cut down anything in its way. Lin Feng took a step and suddenly disappeared. Immediately after, a sword made of pure qi appeared before Tu Jiu and descended from the sky, cutting through anything in its path. The incredible sword illuminated the entire atmosphere, it contained an endless quantity of pure sword qi, deadly qi, and even some battle energy was surrounding it. The incredible sword illuminated the entire atmosphere, it contained an endless quantity of pure sword qi, deadly qi, and even some battle energy was surrounding it. That sword was an incredibly deadly weapon, its power was monstrous. Tu Jiu was gasping with astonishment. His ball of pure lightning qi was bombarding the atmosphere and moving towards Lin Feng's sword. Crackling sounds were followed by loud roars of thunder. The lightning were colliding with the sword made of pure qi. But the ball of lightning made from pure qi was unable to block the incoming sword attack. Lin Feng's sword was descending from the sky and piercing towards its target. A cracking sound emerged in the air, the lightning made from pure qi was pierced. The insanely brutal pure qi dispersed in all directions, creating a shockwave of pure qi. I don't want the beast essence fire anymore, shouted Tu Jiu. He was unable to block the sword made from pure qi. If Lin Feng didn't stop his attack, he would really be able to kill Tu Jiu, so Tu Jiu had to find a way out. He's giving up, Tu Jiu is giving up. The crowd was astonished. The strong and powerful Tu Jiu, who was extremely aggressive, had come to find Lin Feng because he wanted to steal the beast essence fire. Everybody had thought that Lin Feng, even if he didn't die, would, at least, lose the essence fire. When they had heard Lin Feng refuse Tu Jiu, they had been convinced that he would die. But the astonishing result was that Tu Jiu, who couldn't be defeated by any other cultivator of the Ling Qi layer, couldn't rival Lin Feng's power. Lin Feng had defeated him using his pure qi sword. At that moment, Tu Jiu, who was at the peak of the Ling Qi layer, had given up. He wasn't fighting anymore and decided that he no longer needed any of Lin Feng's items. What to do? Said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. Tu Jiu thought that things were really that easy, if he wanted to fight, then he'd fight. He wanted to kill Lin Feng and take the beast essence fire, but because he couldn't defeat Lin Feng, he thought that everything would be solved if he just gave up on wanting to steal from Lin Feng. How could it be that easy? Would he accept if someone did that to him? Lin Feng had told him to choose, leave or die. I am from the Condor Castle of Celestial River, would you dare to kill me and see what happens? Said Tu Jiu when he saw that Lin Feng's sword was still falling from the sky. The sword was slowly piercing through the pure qi and was growing faster and faster. His facial expression had changed drastically. Tu Jiu dared act aggressively and arrogantly in Celestial River because he was incredibly strong, but also because he came from the Condor Castle, which had a certain power in Celestial River. The Condor Castle was a corrupt organization. People who dared offend them were all mercilessly killed. The Condor Castle organization was based within Celestial River territory. They offended many minor people with minor influences in Celestial River, but they were unable to react unless they had enough backing. The crowd was also dumbstruck. Was he going to kill Tu Jiu? They had never thought about such a possibility until that moment. Even though the Haoyu sect was not far from Celestial River, in Celestial River, people of the Haoyu sect, and even of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, didn't dare offend the people of Condor Castle. The Condor Castle organization had deep roots in Celestial River, it had existed for countless years and they were truly ruthless. In order to dismantle it, you would need to remove it from the roots, which was almost impossible, so it was best not to anger them. Since you wanted to kill me, you should have thought that I might kill you too. Said Lin Feng, sounding cold. The crowd were astonished. The sword made from pure qi pierced through the last remaining bit of pure lightning qi. It then moved directly towards Tu Jiu. How dare you! Shouted a voice which resonated through the entire atmosphere. Tu Jiu looked at the sword that was piercing towards him from the sky. He looked hopeless and his heart was filled with regret. People of the Condor Castle organization had gotten used to acting imposing and arrogant in Celestial River. Therefore, he had never thought that he would ever be in such a situation, he had never thought that anyone would dare kill him in Celestial River. At that moment, he was doomed, everything had happened too quickly. PSSH. The light from the deadly pure qi of Lin Feng's sword was gradually vanishing. Tu Jiu was standing there, motionless. Immediately after, his body slowly collapsed. Tu Jiu's eyes were still open, but between his eyebrows, a sword had pierced his skull and a thread of blood was flowing. He was dead. Tu Jiu of the Condor Castle organization had died. He was at the peak of the Ling Qi layer and had killed by Lin Feng in one sword strike. He hadn't even been able to touch Lin Feng even though he had the power to use pure qi, which was the power of the Xian Qi layer. The result exceeded all expectations, it was astonishing, many people were still excited. Lan Jiao, who was behind Lin Feng, was dumbstruck as well. A moment after, she took a deep breath and looked at the back of the domineering young man. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. What an unwavering and determined young man. He wanted to kill Lin Feng, so Lin Feng had killed him. Lin Feng didn't care about his status. Lan Jiao frowned and started walking. She arrived at Lin Feng's side and said, "Lin Feng, you should leave as soon as possible, hurry and leave." Leave? Lin Feng looked at Lan Jiao, shook his head and said, "Why would I leave? You will get killed," said Lan Jiao. Tu Jiu was a member of the Condor Castle organization. Besides, he had a very high status. You killed him, so the members of the Condor Castle organization will not let you off. They will quickly come for you. The Condor Castle organization? Lin Feng frowned. He had an appointment with Mr. Hua in the restaurant, he couldn't leave. "I am not leaving," said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. Lan Jiao was stupefied and insulting Lin Feng in her thoughts. That guy took too many risks for nothing. "Lin Feng, you just want to die," said Lan Jiao furiously. Lin Feng was surprised, he looked at Lan Jiao and immediately said, "Why are you so worried about me?" Lan Jiao was stupefied. Indeed, what was wrong with her? Why was she worried about that bastard? She was supposed to hate Lin Feng. She initially wanted him to die, why was she helping him? "I'm worried about you, but you're right, if you want to die, it's none of my goddamn business." cursed Lan Jiao. She seemed to be revealing her true nature, which was completely different from the other night. Lin Feng looked at Lan Jiao, who was leaving furiously. He started walking and went into the Celestial Mountain restaurant. People in the crowd were shaking their heads. A beautiful woman was warning him, but he couldn't differentiate good from bad. It seemed like this time, he was definitely going to die. The Condor Castle organization was dangerous. They had a lot of influence in Celestial River. Besides, they were comprised of thousands of people, and except for the younger generations, they had all broken through to the Ling Qi layer. There were almost no weak cultivators. Besides, the three leaders of the organization had broken through to the Xian Qi layer. They were extremely powerful, especially the main leader. He had already broken through to the third Xian Qi layer. His power was monstrous to the extent that people who dared provoke him were extremely rare. Even though Lin Feng was very strong and had high natural talent, provoking the Condor Castle organization was no better than courting death. The crowd in the distance hadn't left yet. The news that Tu Jiu had died would spread quickly, and they wanted to see what would happen now that Lin Feng had decided to not leave. Just as the crowd had predicted, not such a long time after, rumbling noises emerged in the distance and the ground was shaking from the horses in the distance. It sounded like a small army of horses galloping. They arrived. People's hearts were pounding. The people of the Condor Castle organization had arrived very quickly. Lin Feng will die. When the crowd heard the rumbling noises, they understood that it was the Condor Castle organization who had come to get their revenge. The Condor Castle organization would definitely kill Lin Feng. A moment later, a group of cavalry on black horses were galloping towards them. They all looked evil and aggressive. The people of the Condor Castle organization were all the most evil and ruthless cultivators. They had so much blood on their hands, the numbers of people they had killed in cold blood would never wash away. They were like Tu Jiu. If they saw someone who had something that they wanted, if the person didn't hand it over, they killed them. They were extremely evil and aggressive. They had no principles and no moral values at all. Many people were rushing out from the Celestial Mountain restaurant. They had heard that the Condor Castle organization had come to avenge Tu Jiu's death. They would of course hide in the distance to avoid any unfortunate incident. A short time after, the Celestial Mountain restaurant had turned completely silent. Besides, in the distance, over 100 cavalry on their armored horses had almost arrived. When they saw Tu Jiu's corpse lying on the road, the leader's facial expression became ice cold and his eyes, which looked like those of an eagle, looked extremely sharp. That person was Tu Jiu's uncle, once of the vice leaders of the Condor Castle organization. "Get out here, you will die," said the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization. They all galloped towards the Celestial Mountain restaurant and immediately started destroying everything in their path. How strong and powerful! The crowd was astonished. In the distance, a thick bronze sign exploded. The leader of the Condor Castle organization had shouted and his voice contained powerful pure qi. Inside the Celestial Mountain restaurant, the atmosphere was absolutely silent, there wasn't a single noise. The crowd was silently observing the scene. The people of the Condor Castle organization had stopped outside restaurant, waiting for Lin Feng, and Lin Feng was obviously not going to come out, otherwise he would die. What they were asking was obviously impossible. "Surround it," said the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization. In a flash, the horses encircled the Celestial Mountain restaurant. The vice leader was in the distance and was staring at the restaurant with murder in his face. "Surround it," said the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization. In a flash, the horses encircled the Celestial Mountain restaurant. The vice leader was in the distance and was staring at the restaurant with murder in his face. "Go inside and capture him, I want him alive," said the vice leader. "Roger," said some cavalry in unison. They immediately passed through the entrance of the restaurant. Immediately after, the few cavalry arrived in the middle of the restaurant. However, immediately after entering the restaurant, an incredibly heavy energy spread through the atmosphere which made their heartbeats accelerate. A blade-like wind suddenly appeared, it was surrounded by an incredible energy. Horrible shrieks spread through the atmosphere. The few silhouettes at the back of the group were blown out of the restaurant. At the front of the group, some people wanted to leave but were blocked by the people behind. It was too chaotic, they were panicking, and suddenly, blood splashed everywhere. Explosive sounds were unceasingly spreading through the atmosphere. Many people were collapsing onto the ground, including the first to enter the restaurant. They were dead. That move astonished the crowd. Lin Feng had forced them enter the restaurant, and when they did, he killed them. The people of the Condor Castle organization didn't dare enter the restaurant anymore. Instead, they were irresolutely pacing back and forth in front of the entrance door of the restaurant. The people inside were clearly dangerous. If he had killed Tujio, that definitely meant that he wasn't weak. If he was alone, only the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization could defeat him. "Get in formation and go inside to capture him, don't move back," said the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization coldly when he saw that his group was completely chaotic. Weren't they able to capture a single person with so many of them? The members of the Condor Castle organization were stupefied. They looked fierce and tough. Immediately after, they came back in formation and started galloping towards the inside of the restaurant. At the same time, rumbling noises spread in the atmosphere. There was no blade light and nobody had shown themselves. The entire unit of cavalry charged into the restaurant like a stampede. The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization smiled coldly. Those who dared kill the people of the Condor Castle organization had to die. Ah! A horrible shriek spread in the air which made the vice leader's smile become rigid. At the same time, people outside were also astonished. A purple light burst forth from the restaurant. There was a bubbling and foaming sound. The light was getting more and more intense. The crowd could see a purple light coming from the inside of the restaurant. All the cavalry who had entered the restaurant were drowned in the purple spirit of Lin Feng. Arg! A gigantic purple spirit appeared in the restaurant. All the cavalry of the Condor Castle organization had been swallowed by it. The purple lake that the crowd could see from outside looked like the gigantic mouth of a ferocious beast. When the purple lake started to slowly disperse, the crowd looked at the restaurant. There was no longer any sounds of movement. All those who had entered the restaurant had died. Not a single person had survived. It seems that killing Lin Feng isn't so easy either, thought people in the crowd. A moment before, dozens of cavalry had entered the restaurant and had died in a flash. The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization wasn't attacking. He was afraid. Lin Feng was killing everyone who entered the restaurant. Of course, there was another possibility, which was to destroy the restaurant, but if they did, Lin Feng would be covered by the dust and would have a chance to escape. At that moment, Lin Feng appeared at the door of the restaurant. He glanced at the crowd. He looked frivolous and aggressive. "If anyone enters the restaurant, I will kill them," said Lin Feng coldly. Many people remained silent. If they entered the restaurant, Lin Feng would kill them. Lin Feng wasn't a saint. "You want to die?" said the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization. A sharp sound emerged in the atmosphere. He jumped up into the air and he immediately threw himself at the restaurant with incredible speed. He was bursting through the atmosphere at an amazing speed. Lin Feng was smiling coldly. When he saw the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization, his silhouette flickered. He went back into the restaurant and an incredible quantity of purple liquid appeared. Die! In a flash, the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization rushed inside the restaurant. His loud shout resonated through the atmosphere. 3 balls of pure qi appeared in the atmosphere and moved in the 3 directions, where Lin Feng, Meng Qing and Ba Dao were. Kacha! The purple light filled the atmosphere and expanded into every direction. At the same time, a brilliant sword appeared and stopped the pure chi which was approaching. Humph! The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization groaned. He released even more pure chi, a dazzling light appeared around his body and he raised his hands. At the same time, the purple liquid was covering his whole body, unable to make his body melt. The vice leader's claw-like hands were moving towards Lin Feng at full speed. But at that moment, the vice leader's heart started to pound. An extremely brutal and cold energy penetrated into his chest, as if it wanted to freeze his inner organs. He abruptly turned and was afraid because he noticed an extremely cold presence. His facial expression drastically changed, his body was shaking, he wanted to leave but it was already too late. Coldness had already invaded his body. Gotcha! The endless ice energy and the pure chi collided. At that moment, the pure chi was frozen in place. At the same time, some bubbling sounds could be heard. The terrifying purple lake surrounded the vice leader's body. An extremely brutal and violent purple energy started to corrode his body, his facial expression drastically changed. Crack! Ice chi crashed down from the sky. The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization tried to struggle but the purple lake transformed into a huge dragon which tightly held him in place. Gotcha! The ice was falling through the atmosphere. It then reached the vice leader's hand, freezing it. Besides that, the ice started to spread all over his body. He looked hopeless and his body was covered by a layer of ice. Arg! The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization gave a horrible shriek when the ice enveloped his body. But it was of no use, he was surrounded by the purple lake. He had no strength to escape, besides he was freezing and being corroded, death was one step away. The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization had broken through to the Xian Qi layer but at that moment, his body was melting and freezing at the same time, he was just waiting to die. That was terrifying. His body started shaking insanely, he didn't want to die. He had come to avenge Tuzhou, he wanted to kill Lin Feng but he never thought that he would be killed. Cracking noises spread in the atmosphere. The ice kept invading his body at incredible speed and finally, he was completely frozen. Outside, the crowd was fixedly staring at the Celestial Mountain restaurant. Even though the door of the restaurant was already damaged, it could, as before, prevent the crowd from seeing inside. What was happening inside? A moment before, the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization had entered, had he killed Lin Feng and his friends? Boom! An explosive sound burst forth. The restaurant of the door was crushed into pieces. A silhouette was blown out of the restaurant. The silhouette fell down onto the ground before the crowd. That person was dead. When the crowd saw that silhouette, they were wondering who it was. They were absolutely dumbstruck. That silhouette was the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization, a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization had died. He had entered the restaurant a short time before and his corpse had already been sent back out. An incredible quantity of cold energy moved towards the remaining members of the Condor Castle organization. The vice leader, just like the others a moment ago, had entered the restaurant and died. The door of the restaurant was a free path to hell. A silhouette moved out of the restaurant. That person looked handsome but infinite coldness and killing intent were also present in their eyes. If that person wanted to kill, they killed. A purple illusion appeared in front of Lin Feng. It was a huge purple dragon. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered and he jumped into the air. Purple energy emerged from his hand and blocked two silhouettes that were escaping on their horses. A sword light fell from the sky like a meteor, these two silhouettes were immediately blown into the air from the impact and died before hitting the ground. Behind Lin Feng's back, a pure and holy white silhouette appeared. They looked like gods. Many people of the Condor Castle organization had all been frozen and had died, their horses were not even spared. Besides, at that moment, a silhouette as sharp as a blade appeared and emitted a resplendent light. Any person who found themselves under that blade would die. 3 people had massacred all the members from Condor Castle that had come to the restaurant. There was nobody left. They had no chance to fight back against such overwhelming power. They had all died miserably. The black horses were going insane, galloping around and neighing. Lin Feng and his 2 friends were way too strong, each of them were monstrously strong. Each time they attacked, someone would die. The black horses were going insane, galloping around and neighing. Lin Feng and his 2 friends were way too strong, each of them were monstrously strong. Each time they attacked, someone would die. That amazing woman was particularly strong. If anyone got too close to her, they got the impression that they were going to freeze on the spot. She was clearly a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. That man wearing a bronze mask was the weakest of the 3 of them, but he had still broken through to the 7th Ling Qi layer. Besides, he could control a shocking amount of blade force. Lin Feng was usually relaxed, carefree and enigmatic, but in any case, he was monstrously strong. Very quickly, outside of the Celestial Mountain restaurant, a mountain of corpses appeared. Apart from a few people who managed to escape early, the others were all dead, just like Tujio. They had come in an imposing and domineering fashion, but this would be their final resting place. Including the vice leader of the Condor Castle organization, who was a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. How powerful! Thought the crowd when they saw Lin Feng. They could barely believe their eyes. They did not think that Lin Feng and his friends would be that strong, killing each and every single person who dared to enter the restaurant. No wonder he was in no rush to run away. He already had such terrifying strength, which is why he wasn't afraid of any opponents coming to fight him. Lan Jiao's eyes were flashing. She looked at Meng Qing. What a pure and holy-looking woman. She looked so lithe and graceful. She was a rare beauty. Her heart was beating slightly faster when looking at Meng Qing. She wanted to see her face. No wonder that, her lips vibrated. As if she was thwarted in love, Lan Jiao's heart was filled with hidden bitterness. No wonder she did not manage to seduce Lin Feng. He already had such a beautiful woman at his side. Lin Feng stopped looking at the corpses and immediately went back into the restaurant. Meng Qing and Ba Dao followed him closely. The 3 silhouettes once more disappeared from the crowd's sight. The crowd looked at the restaurant. They had already killed so many people from the Condor Castle organization, including their vice leader. The next people sent from Condor Castle would definitely be even more brutal. What an irresponsible guy. You think that you can rely on the strength of 3 people to defeat the Condor Castle organization? Lan Jiao was cursing at Lin Feng in her heart. Lin Feng surprisingly didn't intend to leave. It seemed like he wanted to annihilate the entire Condor Castle organization, and if he didn't, then he would regret it. Lin Feng was sitting inside the restaurant, his eyes closed as he calmly breathed in and out. He was in fusion with the earth. His heart was in fusion with his body and thus, his heart was also in fusion with the earth itself. Lin Feng, no matter where he was or what the circumstance, could always enter an ideal mental state for cultivation. He was surrounded by pure qi light. A vast quantity of pure qi was unceasingly moving towards Lin Feng's body. At the same time, Lin Feng entered into an ideal state of meditation, emptying his heart and mind. His body was recovering and regaining the vitality which his soul had consumed. Lin Feng could use pure qi. It didn't have too much effect on him, but, when he used the strength of his soul he had to recover quickly because without it, it would impact his fighting ability. When Lin Feng used his purple energy to attack, or made a gigantic dragon appear, he also had to use the strength of his soul. If he didn't have a strong soul, the purple spirit wouldn't be able to leave his body to attack. The stronger his soul was, the farther he could attack using his purple energy. While Lin Feng and his friends were recovering inside of the restaurant, the crowd outside still had not left. They were still looking at the restaurant. waiting for some other people from the Condor Castle organization to come. They wanted to see how this entire story would end. After a while, rumbling noises spread through the atmosphere. The ground started shaking again. That time, the ground was shaking even more intensely than last time. The noises were so loud that the people in the crowd had the impression that they were going to become deaf. Very quickly, a gigantic army of black armored horses appeared. It seemed like there were more than 1,000 of them. People's hearts started pounding. Tu Jiu, who was at the peak of the Ling Qi layer, and the vice leader in the Xian Qi layer, had both been killed. 100 other members of the organization had been killed as well. That made all the other members of the Condor Castle organization furious. The whole nest had come out to attack. They are here. The crowd saw the group and moved far away from them. The newcomers were extremely strong. The crowd was too scared to be too close, attacks might hit them if they were. The one leading them was a bald man. He looked tall and sturdy, with a huge scar on his face. He looked monstrous and hideous. A single glance was suffice to see that he was anything but a saint. The bald man was carrying a broadsword on his shoulder. A deadly qi emerging from his body. He had an impressive bearing and a commanding presence. He was one of the vice leaders of the Condor Castle organization. The great leader and him were the core of the organization. The great leader was the strongest cultivator of the Condor Castle organization. He was mysterious. Very few people had seen him. It was said that a few years ago, he invaded the castle of the organization alone and had made everyone submit to him. He was extremely strong and had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer. He had replaced the previous leaders and became the great leader of the organization. The cavalry, on their black horses, were galloping at full speed and they immediately encircled the restaurant. The leader looked at the corpses on the ground and then at the restaurant. His eyes looking bloodthirsty. "Come out!" shouted the leader extremely loudly and aggressively. His voice was so imposing that the windows of the restaurant were shaking. Lin Feng and his friends just ignored him. Why would they willingly come out of the restaurant? That was impossible. The leader's facial expression was sharp and ice-cold. Sounding like a demon, he said, "For having killed my people, I will torture you to death. Everybody, stay in position and wait for them to come out, then kill them." "Roger!" shouted the cavalry while releasing some deadly qi. The leader didn't have the same plan as the other leader a moment ago. He didn't want to enter the restaurant, he wanted to Lin Feng to suffer from fear. But how hard was it going to be for Lin Feng? In the Earth Fusion dimension, his heart stayed focused and he just continued practicing cultivation. His heart was like flowing water. The things around him did not affect the earth and therefore they did not affect him, otherwise, why would it be called Earth Fusion? The leader jumped off his horse and walked to the other leader's corpse. An evil facial expression appearing on his face. How cold! The leader's body was frozen and melted. His blood had frozen entirely. His muscles had stopped working. What a powerful ice energy! The leader raised his head and looked at the Celestial Mountain restaurant. He was convinced that the dead leader should have waited for them to arrive before he entered. Even though that leader looked rude and stupid, people close to them all knew that he was much wiser than the leader who died. His aggressiveness and tyranny intrigued people. That person was also much more cold-blooded than the previous leader. He had brought 1,000 people along. He wasn't willing to take risks. Those who were inside the restaurant had killed the other leader, which meant that they were probably strong enough to kill him as well. He didn't feel like gambling with his life. Even though Lin Feng was surrounded by an army of 1,000 men, Lin Feng was too difficult to kill. If the situation was too dangerous, they couldn't afford gambling, they had to be careful and vigilant. Outside of the Celestial Mountain restaurant, the atmosphere was absolutely calm, but it seemed like the situation could explode at any moment. The 1,000 men surrounding the restaurant patiently waiting. Time passed very slowly. The silence in which the atmosphere was drowned was oppressive, but the crowd did not leave. They were standing in the distance, waiting for a battle to start. However, they had just been waiting for a whole day. The troops of the Condor Castle organization had been waiting there for a whole day. They had not attacked, and besides, the crowd had also been there for a whole day as well. It was as if they weren't tired. The atmosphere was, as before, extremely calm. However, at that moment, in the distance, a sound emerged in the atmosphere and the ground slightly shook. Besides, that sound was becoming louder and louder and the ground was shaking more and more violently. Horses were coming, even more people were arriving. The crowd was stupefied. They were looking into the distance and immediately, they saw a group of snow-white horses moving towards them. The cavalry were dressed in white and were releasing some piercingly cold chi. It seemed like ice and snow were appearing on the ground as they passed by. The people of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village have come. The people in the crowd shrank their eyes and guessed who these people were. Bing Yuan, the prodigy of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, had been killed. The Ice and Snow Mountain Village was way too strong to ignore such an insult. They're galloping so fast. The crowd was astonished. This time, Lin Feng was definitely going to die. The people of the Condor Castle organization and the people of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village both had come. They would definitely manage to kill him. Piss off! Shouted a voice coming from the very front of the cavalry when he saw that in front of him was the bald leader. The crowd was astonished. The person from the Ice and Snow Mountain Village was so aggressive. He was so strong that, the bald leader of the Condor Castle organization was not even put in his eyes. The bald leader looked at him and said, "What is your social status within the sect of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village to talk to me that way?" "Bing He Teng," said the newcomer, sounding indifferent. The crowd frowned. Bing He Teng had personally come. He was a great elder of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. Bing He Teng. The bald leader was a bit surprised as well. Bing He Teng. The bald leader was a bit surprised as well. Bing He Teng was an extremely strong cultivator of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village. His name was famous in the entire region. He had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer and was about as strong as the patriarch of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, Han Shuatian. This time, he had personally come because of Bing Yuan. Bing Yuan was his direct disciple. He had spent a lot of time making him strong and then someone had killed him. How could Bing He Teng not be furious? "Great Master Bing, I assumed that we had the same social status. It's not so good to be that aggressive," said the bald leader while narrowing his eyes. Bing He Teng had immediately told him to piss off, making the bald leader lose face. "It's not so good. Who gave you the damn permission to talk to me?" said Bing He Teng, whose voice was filled with coldness and eyes with disdain. The people of the Condor Castle organization are a bunch of dogs and chickens in Bing He Teng's opinion, nothing more. They were rude and filthy to look at. Even though they had a little bit of influence in Celestial River, Bing He Teng despised them. "What about me?" said a voice which sounded evil. Bing He Teng's pupils shrank. At that moment, an extremely evil energy invaded the atmosphere. People started feeling shivers run down their spines. In the air, a silhouette was descending from the sky. It was moving extremely quickly. A brutal and evil fist bombarded the atmosphere and was moving straight towards Bing He Teng. It was filled with a dense evil chi. "Get lost!" furiously shouted Bing He Teng. It was snowing, and the snowflakes transformed into ice filled with a deadly chi which rushed towards the fist. Boom! The atmosphere was shaking. The snow was elegantly and gracefully falling down from the sky, fluttering in the wind. How cold! The crowd, who were in the distance, all started shaking when the coldness penetrated into their bodies. That coldness also contained a monstrously dense evil chi. The crowd saw Bing He Teng's body being projected backwards. On the ground, a long and deep mark followed his trajectory. He was blankly staring at the person in front of him. That person had long, messy hair fluttering in the wind. From head to foot, that person looked like an evil spirit. It was surrounded by evil chi. However, when Bing Heting saw that person, he had a strange and familiar sensation. Leader. The members of the Condor Castle organization were all kneeling down, their eyes were filled with fear. He's the great leader of the Condor Castle organization. As expected, he's very mysterious. When the crowd saw that person, they narrowed their eyes as if they wanted to see more clearly. Bing Heting was still fixedly staring at him. What, you don't recognize an old friend anymore? Said the great leader, sounding evil, which made Bing Heting shiver. His pupils shrank and he said, sounding surprised, it's you. Indeed, it's me. Bing Heting, you just couldn't believe it, right? Indeed, I am too surprised. You came to Celestial River and became the great leader of the Condor Castle organization. Said Bing Heting, surprised. He recognized that person. In the past, they had already fought. Bing Heting used to be slightly stronger than his interlocutor, but at that moment, they were already of the same level, but the great leader's attack had been enough to project him backwards. That's life. When my son died, I dedicated my entire life to becoming stronger and became who I am today. Said the great leader, sounding evil and mysterious. Bing Heting, this time, we're meeting again, but we have one common goal. Let's take care of it first. All right. Said Bing Heting while nodding. That interlocutor had the right to talk to him. They turned around and looked at the Celestial Mountain restaurant. Bunch of crap, get into the restaurant and tell me what's going on. Said the great leader of the Condor Castle organization, his voice was piercingly cold. Immediately after, the members of the Condor Castle organization stood up. The crowd was sighing in amazement. The great leader of the Condor Castle organization was extremely imposing, domineering and aggressive, which was why his people feared him so much. No need. At that moment, a cold and detached voice spread in the air. A silhouette appeared at the entrance of the restaurant. That person was slowly coming out. On that person's side, there was a pure and holy silhouette. She looked like a shadow. The great leader, Bing Heting, as well as Lin Feng and his two other friends, all glanced at each other. They all recognized each other. What a surprise, that's Lin Feng of the Yunhai sect. Said Bing Heting at that moment. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He thought, that boy, he's a monster. He must die today. When the Yunhai sect had been destroyed, Bing Heting had also participated in the massacre. On that day, he had seen how frivolous Lin Feng was, notably on the stage of the life and death arena. At that moment, less than a year later, that frivolous young man had already become so strong that he had been able to kill the best core disciple of the Ice and Snow Mountain village. If he gave more time to Lin Feng, he feared that he wouldn't be able to keep him under control and he would be a great threat. At that moment, he had to kill Lin Feng, not only to get his revenge but also to avoid further threats. On Bing Heting's side, the great leader's face was filled with even more obvious killing intent. He was evilly staring at Lin Feng. It's you. It's me. Replied Lin Feng. Lin Feng surprisingly knew the great leader of the Condor Castle organization. Back in the past, he was also at the Yunhai sect. He had an extremely high status within the sect. Mo Tsanglan, you look even less human each time I see you, truly monstrous, you look half dead as if brought back from the brink of death. The great leader surprisingly was a traitor of the Yunhai sect. It was the one in charge of enforcing the rule of the Yunhai sect, the great elder Mo Tsanglan. He had tried to help his son Mo Xie kill Lin Feng a few times. On the day when the Yunhai sect was destroyed, Mo Tsanglan had cut off Nan Gongling's fingers. Half dead? Mo Tsanglan smiled as if it was a joke and said, it looks like it, but this is only a human body. Besides, what is the point in looking good? Strength is the most important thing. For example, you you are so young, but today, you will die because I have the strength to kill you, and that girl on your side too, what a pity, such a beautiful body and she will have to die with you. Lin Feng's facial expression became ice-cold when he saw Mo Lan's evil expression. That guy had probably been learning evil skills to look the way he did at that moment. His body looked like it was decomposing even though he was alive, he looked like a horrible and evil monster. The crowd was thinking the same way though. Indeed, in the continent, only strength mattered. For example, Lin Feng's life, at that moment, was in danger and it did not matter if he was handsome. It would be difficult for him to escape against strength. That bastard, thought Lin Jiao. This was a dead end for Lin Feng, he wouldn't be able to escape. He let himself fall into this trap. The vice leader of the Condor Castle organization, Mo Lan and Bing Hiteng had all broken through to the Xian Qi layer. Lin Feng couldn't escape. Lin Feng, how do you want to die? Said Mo Lan while evilly staring at Li Feng. Back in the past, his son Mo Xia had been killed by Protector Kong because of Lin Feng. At that moment, he finally had an opportunity to avenge his dead son and kill Lin Feng. When Meng Qing heard that Mo Lan wanted to kill Lin Feng, she took a big step forwards and immediately released some ice energy which froze the ground. Her ice energy was extremely sharp and covered the earth and even froze the air. The ice chi which Meng Qing was releasing wasn't weaker than that of Bing Hiteng's at all. Her ice chi was piercing to the bones. That is the strength of the second Xian Qi layer. Mo Lan and Bing Hiteng were stupefied. That girl had the strength of the second Xian Qi layer. Besides, her ice chi was stronger, colder and more violent than ordinary ice chi. No wonder that she had managed to kill the other vice leader. Not bad, but unfortunately, even if you manage to block one of us, will the result not be the same, death? Said Mo Lan evilly. I, old as I am, haven't exercised in a while, I'd be happy to join the fun. At that moment, a silhouette appeared. It was an old man. He was coming towards them. Mr. Hua. Lin Feng was stupefied. It was Mr. Hua who had been so friendly to Lin Feng, but it seemed like he had come one day too early. Hello, said Mr. Hua while slightly nodding at Lin Feng. He walked towards Lin Feng while releasing an insanely scorching hot fire chi, the exact opposite of Meng Qing's ice. Third Xian Qi layer. The crowd was astonished. Surprisingly, there was another extremely strong cultivator who wanted to help Lin Feng. Mr. Hua, thank you, said Lin Feng to the old man who was by his side. Mr. Hua smiled and said, you still have some things to exchange with me, how could I let those things end up in their hands? Lin Feng slightly nodded and said, Mr. Hua, after we solve that problem, I will express my gratitude to you properly. You are still a young man, so full of confidence, said Mr. Hua while smiling and shaking his head. They had 3 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer in front of them. The old man wasn't scared for himself, he wouldn't die, he was strong enough to escape, but he wanted to protect Lin Feng. The spirit blood pills were really amazing. Another one who has come to die, said Bing Hiteng coldly. He looked at Lin Feng and said, you are really naive. Do you think that these 2 can protect you? We have one more cultivator of the Xian Qi layer, how will you block him? Xian Qi layer, said Lin Feng and glanced at the bald vice leader of the Condor Castle organization. He then immediately asked Meng Qing, will you be alright? I can prevent him from approaching, said Meng Qing while staring at Bing Hiteng. Alright, said Lin Feng while nodding. Mr. Hua, can you take care of that hideous monster? Sorry for putting you in trouble. I haven't exercised for a long time, but that hideous creature shouldn't be a problem, replied the old man. The problem is that there is another person, how do you intend to deal with him? There's another one. Well, I'm in need of a warm-up, I will help myself, said Lin Feng indifferently. At that moment, a sharp light appeared and invaded the atmosphere. I'll help myself. I'll help myself. Lin Feng's loud and imposing voice resonated in the atmosphere. People's expression became rigid when they heard him. Help himself. Lin Feng, relying on his strength of the Ling Qi layer, intended to fight against a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer? Was that even possible? However, at that moment, Lin Feng's eyes looked sharp, he looked extremely frivolous, and it didn't seem like he was joking. He would have never joked about such things anyway. Meng Qing and Mr. Hua wanted to fight against Bing Hiteng and Mo Tsanglan. The bald leader was left and someone had to fight against him. Lin Feng had no choice but to fight against him. No matter if he wanted to fight or not, he had to. He's going to fight against someone of the Xian Qi layer, whispered the crowd. They looked impatient. They were wondering who would win, Lin Feng or the cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. But they of course, thought that the bald leader would win. They just thought that Lin Feng had no choice but to fight, that he was forcing himself to be brave, that's all. Lin Feng was a genius and had high natural talent, but how could he compete with a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer? Lin Feng had absolutely no chance of victory. However, the two other battles were going to be worth watching. When the bald leader heard Lin Feng's words, a cold and evil expression appeared in his eyes. Lin Feng was going to help himself. Lin Feng was humiliating him. A cultivator of the Ling Qi layer surprisingly dared to fight against him. How long will you need to kill him? Said Mo Tsanglan coldly while looking at the bald leader. In Mo Tsanglan's opinion, Lin Feng would never be able to defeat the bald leader. Lin Feng just wanted to rush to his own death, that's all. A light flashed in the bald leader's eyes and he immediately said, if nobody else interrupts, I will definitely kill him within 10 moves. By saying 10 moves, he was taking precautions in case anything went wrong, but he would normally need much less. How could he not win against a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer? Alright, let's see if you kill him in 10 moves, humph. Mo Tsanglan coldly groaned, which made the bald leader's heartbeat accelerate. His face was filled with murderous intentions. He had to kill Lin Feng in 10 moves, otherwise, Mo Tsanglan would be furious and it would be bad for him. Mo Tsanglan was really frightening. A year before, Mo Tsanglan had conquered the Condor Castle organization by himself. He would never forget that terrifying event. An insanely brutal and sharp qi filled the atmosphere while emitting whistling sounds. Behind the bald leader's body appeared an illusionary spirit. The illusion was a beast, more precisely an eagle. Its two piercingly cold eyes were staring at Lin Feng. Within 10 moves, I will definitely kill him, said the bald leader coldly. In order to ensure his victory, he immediately released his spirit. He was definitely going to kill Lin Feng. Mo Tsanglan laughed and took a step forwards and released an incredible qi which immediately enveloped Mr. Hua's body. Mr. Hua was fixedly staring at him, unable to react. At the same time, Bing Hiteng also released some ice qi. Ice and frost appeared in the atmosphere and covered a huge area. The ambient temperature immediately fell. It was incredibly cold. These two people were blocking Meng Qing and Mr. Hua. The crowd would be able to witness Lin Feng's death. Within 10 moves, Lin Feng would die. 10 moves, said Lin Feng, whose eyes didn't look sharp anymore. Instead, he looked calm. He was in fusion with the earth, nothing could affect his state of mind. Every single thing that was surrounding him was perfectly clear and distinct in his mind. Everything belonged to his world and he was in fusion with everything around him. Boom! The bald leader stamped onto the ground and a crack appeared in the ground. He jumped up in the air and raised a monstrous blade. The sound of an eagle spread through the air and bald leader's body suddenly started to swoop down. His silhouette turned into a bright light rushed towards Lin Feng. While he soared through the sky, he had almost reached Lin Feng, but Lin Feng wasn't reacting. How sinister, what a devious trick! The crowd was astonished. The bald leader's previous move had led everybody to think that he was going to focus on the power of his attack to win, but instead he adjusted his body and swooped down with incredible speed. He hadn't waited for his power to reach its maximum. Instead, he was swooping from the sky, not giving Lin Feng the time to react. That way he would be able to kill Lin Feng in one hit. However, to Lin Feng, who was in fusion with the earth, that seemed like a joke. If it had indeed been extremely quick, then it might have worked, but his speed wouldn't be close to enough. In Lin Feng's mind, the bald leader's actions were almost in slow motion and he saw every movement clearly. The bald leader's body released a soft light as it soared on the wind. A huge rumbling sound spread in the atmosphere. The broadsword in the bald leader's hand shot down from the sky at a terrifying speed and slammed into the ground, creating a huge crevice beneath it. However, Lin Feng was no longer there and had already moved away, looking at the scene indifferently. "One move," said Lin Feng indifferently. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Feng was counting the moves. The bald leader was stupefied. He raised his head and coldly looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng had reacted very quickly, he was very fast. The bald leader jumped through the air like an eagle. His broadsword moved straight towards Lin Feng. The light emitted by the blade was swift and filled with pure qi. 2 moves. 3 moves. 4 moves. 5 moves. Lin Feng's silhouette was unceasingly flickering, the light of the broadsword kept passing by him but never reached his body. Each time, Lin Feng dodged the attack by a hair. The most shocking part was that Lin Feng was counting and dodging at the same time. A huge rumbling noise filled the atmosphere, the broadsword violently and heavily smashed into the ground. Lin Feng had dodged an attack again, looking light and relaxed. That was the 6th move. What a terrifying dodging ability. A moment ago, the 5 first moves had been monstrously fierce and powerful, but Lin Feng had dodged them easily. Surprisingly, he hadn't been touched once. His agility techniques were monstrously powerful. 6 moves. The crowd was astonished. Even though Lin Feng had dodged, after the 6th attack, the bald leader still hadn't managed to touch Lin Feng. Only 4 moves were remaining. The bald leader was dumbstruck. He was blankly staring at Lin Feng. He didn't care about his broadsword anymore. A golden color appeared around his body, it was filled with pure qi which was being released from his body. At that moment, he was realizing that Lin Feng was too quick, he knew that Lin Feng's power was terrifying. It seemed like Lin Feng was controlling everything. He could dodge the attacks as he wished, it seemed so mysterious. Even though the bald leader's attacks were all strong, they weren't able to reach Lin Feng at all. Iya! In the air, a sharp and high-pitched eagle cry emerged, it was piercingly sharp in everyone's ears. The bald leader was attacking again. He had transformed into a golden light that was dazzling to the eyes. His body looked like it was inside a golden eagle. At that moment, the bald leader had transformed into an eagle. Lin Feng raised his head, his silhouette flickered and, looking elegant and graceful, he moved away. However, that eagle illusion was closely following him at incredible speed. It was leaving a trail of light behind it as if there was gold filling the sky, it was extremely beautiful. Lin Feng slightly frowned and his silhouette kept flickering. However, at that moment, it seemed like the bald man's spirit had merged with his body. His soul was probably extremely strong. He was closely following Lin Feng, determined to kill him in under 10 moves. An incredible quantity of sword qi emerged in the air, it was so sharp. That sword energy seemed like it had appeared out of nowhere. Piss. Lin Feng's hand was piercing through the atmosphere. There was no sword in his hand, but the crowd could see that it was as if his hand had become a sword, it would really be able to pierce through people. That qi was clearly not as powerful as the eagle. Boom! The golden eagle and the hand collided. The sword energy was destroyed and Lin Feng's body was projected back a few dozen meters. A cultivator of the Ling Qi layer, fighting against a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer, inevitably encountered a difference in strength. 7 moves, said Lin Feng. He raised his head, he still looked calm. 3 moves left, let's see if you can block them. At that moment, the bald leader's facial expression was extremely evil. He had broken through to the Xian Qi layer, he should easily be able to defeat Lin Feng, who was only of the Ling Qi layer. I will definitely block them, said Lin Feng coldly. An incredible battle energy started burning around his body. Apart from the battle energy, he also released some sword qi and deadly qi. At the same time, behind Lin Feng emerged a purple lake which was bubbling and foaming. The bald leader was furious. Lin Feng had become angry. On that day, new people had unceasingly been coming to kill Lin Feng. Everybody was coming to kill him and looking down on him as if he had no choice but to die. How could Lin Feng not be furious? Would the 10 moves be enough to kill him? He wants to fight, Lin Feng wants to fight. He wants to fight, Lin Feng wants to fight. When the crowd sensed Lin Feng's deadly qi and battle energy, they couldn't help but shiver. What an insane young man. Even though he had only broken through to the Ling Qi layer and thus his level largely differed from that of his opponent. His determination and willpower were unwavering, he followed his beliefs without hesitation. The bald leader had asked Lin Feng how he intended to block the last 3 attacks, but why did he not consider that Lin Feng also had the ability to attack? The bald leader was stupefied as well. Lin Feng wanted to attack him, he had decided to stop dodging and fight. The eagle silhouette was emitting a dazzling golden light. It was unceasingly absorbing more pure qi. Lin Feng was courting death. At that moment, Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky. He stretched his arm out and shouted coldly, "Sword." When he finished speaking, a sword appeared in Lin Feng's hand. It was made from pure qi and contained some deadly qi as well. It looked like the sword of a war god. At that moment, Lin Feng's body was like an extremely sharp sword. His body was releasing incredible amounts of sword qi and battle energy. The battle energy and sword qi is much stronger than a moment ago when he killed the other leader of the Condor Castle organization. The crowd was astonished. At that moment, Lin Feng was releasing an incredibly strong sword qi and battle energy. It seemed like he was planning to kill. That's only a simple sword made of pure qi, nothing more, said the bald leader while smiling coldly. Around his body, the flowing pure qi was emitting a dazzling golden light. He raised his head and cried just like an eagle, which made the crowd grow excited. Once a cultivator had broken through to the Xian Qi layer, his spirit became more and more lifelike. A stronger spirit was of extremely useful during a battle and helped to increase cultivation speed as well. At that moment, the bald leader seemed like he had become an eagle, he also possessed the precise vision of an eagle. When cultivators reached a certain level of cultivation, the latent energy of their spirit increased. Therefore, if a cultivator had a beast spirit, that beast spirit would be growing until it became monstrously strong and revealed its true powers. Oh, is that so? Only a sword made of pure qi, nothing more, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. He then took a step forwards, his sword and deadly energies were getting stronger and stronger. Die! Shouted Lin Feng. The battle energy left Lin Feng's body and rolled through the atmosphere. It was moving towards the bald leader at full speed. The crowd was astonished, even though they were standing far away, they could sense Lin Feng's battle energy. It was extremely powerful. Lin Feng was fearless, all that was going through his mind was to kill his opponent. At that moment, Lin Feng looked like a warlord. Die! Shouted the bald leader, whose voice was as sharp as that of an eagle's cry. His body transformed into a myriad of shadows which all moved towards Lin Feng. Behind Lin Feng, his purple spirit suddenly appeared, it turned into 100 snakes which all moved towards the bald leader and curled around his body, completely constricting him. The bald leader was shaking, the strength of the spirit could be sensed in the air. "Swallow!" shouted Lin Feng. These small snakes turned into a large venomous snake and started devouring the strength of the eagle spirit. These snake spirits were extremely corrosive, and it seemed like they were going to melt all the pure chi that was surrounding the bald leader's body. "Break!" furiously shouted the bald leader. His pure chi turned into a huge blade and rushed towards one of the snake illusions, piercing the purple spirit. However, immediately after, the myriad of purple snakes seemed to go into a frenzy. They formed a spiral around the bald leader and then started spinning at the speed of light. The strength of that spirit seemed incredible, its movements seemed so precise and accurate. "Rise!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. A deadly light flashed in his eyes. 100 purple snakes suddenly curled around the bald leader's body, constricting him again. Lin Feng was relying on the strength of his spirit, which he made curl around the bald leader's body. The crowd was gasping with astonishment when they saw the scene. Lin Feng looked like a majestic war god. What a strong spirit! Lin Feng was so strong. His strange spirit seemed like it could transform itself as many times as he wished. This time, 100 purple snakes had appeared and were all absorbing the leader's vitality. Besides, they were very useful to Lin Feng as they were constricting the bald leader's body. However, what the crowd didn't know was that Lin Feng, in order to carry out such precise attacks, had suffered incredible pain when using the surplus soul technique. He was releasing his surplus souls, which he then merged with his purple spirit. That was the only way for him to reach such a monstrous strength. His attack was also extremely accurate. He was controlling 100 snakes at the same time and using them all to consume the leader's vitality. The vitality was nourishment for his soul. Lin Feng's eyes were closed and he had the feeling that his soul was still too weak. This was the first time he was using such a colossal amount of his soul strength. Nonetheless, he couldn't stand it. It was too hard for him to control. Actually, Lin Feng couldn't imagine creating millions of surplus souls. Forget about billions. It sounded like a monstrous punishment to the body. Lin Feng, even though his eyes were closed, was releasing his battle energy. It was extremely dense. He was also endlessly releasing sword chi. It seemed like his sword was about ready to attack. At the same time, the face of the bald leader, who was still constricted by the snakes, turned rigid. His powerful pure chi turned into a resplendent blade. "Slash!" shouted the bald leader furiously. His blade diffused a bright and dazzling light in the atmosphere. The purple spirit around his body was finally cut off and collapsed. But at that moment, Lin Feng's eyes, which were closed, slowly started to open. Deadly cross shadow. An incredible light in the shape of a cross appeared. Everybody couldn't believe their eyes. The crowd couldn't even follow it with their eyes as the attack was way too quick. There was only some battle energy, deadly chi and sword chi that could be sensed. The cross disappeared as quickly as it appeared and blood splashed through the air. The crowd was astonished when they saw the bald leader had fallen onto the ground. A large cross mark had appeared on his chest. It was pouring with blood. The powerful chi, the earth fusion, his godly sword, his purple spirit and the deadly cross shadow were all separate parts of Lin Feng's counterattack. Lin Feng's sword made from pure chi wasn't just a simple sword. That sword contained an incredible amount of battle energy. 8 moves, you still have 2 more. Said Lin Feng, which broke the silence. 8 moves, there were still 2 more moves, but the loser was already clear and it wasn't Lin Feng, but instead it was the bald leader. In 10 moves, who would kill whom? The bald leader was using pure chi to heal his wounds, but at that moment he was already completely dispirited and depressed. The cross was glowing on his chest and his injury wasn't only external. The powerful sword chi had also invaded his body through the wound and damaged his internal organs. What a monstrous attack! What an amazing young man! People's hearts were pounding. Lin Feng was monstrously strong. Nothing was happening the way they had predicted. Lin Feng, once again, was giving birth to miracles. One strike, he had just needed a single strike, and his strength of the Ling Qi layer defeated a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. That sword had completely changed people's perception of Lin Feng. Lin Feng had defeated a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer, and from that moment, they truly admired him. Lights were unceasingly flashing in Lan Jiao's eyes. She was staring at Lin Feng. What a daring young man. No wonder that her 1,000 evil illusions hadn't worked against him. Lin Feng wasn't an ordinary person, he was an incredible genius. Besides, at that moment, Bing Heting's killing intent was exploding in his heart as he thought, how monstrous. Lin Feng really was a monster. He was much more frightening than all the disciples they had at the Ice and Snow Mountain village. If the Yunhai sect hadn't been exterminated, a disciple such as Lin Feng would have inevitably reached an even more monstrous level with the aid of a teacher. That guy had to die. Piece of trash. Shouted Mo Tsonglan's evil voice. He moved to attack. At the same time, Mr. Hua moved as well, closely following him. He wouldn't give him an opportunity to attack Lin Feng. However, the person towards whom Mo Tsonglan was rushing wasn't Lin Feng at all, instead, it was the bald leader. No! Shouted the bald leader as if he had just realized what was about to happen. His body was insanely shaking. He tried to escape, but at that moment, vines curled around his body, constricting him. In a flash, that vine turned into a blood-sucking plant monster, absorbing the bald leader's blood and flesh. The bald leader's blood and flesh was circulating through a system of the vines and then penetrating straight into Mo Tsonglan's body. The crowd was astonished and their hearts were pounding. What a terrifying skill! Mo Tsonglan's vines were surprisingly absorbing the bald leader's flesh, blood and pure qi. The bald leader's face was distorted in pain and he looked terrified. His body was violently shaking, but one could see that he was powerless. However, Mo Tsonglan looked like a greedy demon who was enjoying the taste of human flesh. Every member of the Condor Castle organization was incredibly scared of Mo Tsonglan. They were all violently shaking. He was a true demon. Their great leader was a demon. Even in their most horrible thoughts, they would have never imagined that such an evil skill existed before they met him. A moment later, the bald leader's body had turned into a pile of skin and bones. His skin and bones were all that was left on the ground. Mo Tsonglan recalled his vines back into his body and at that moment, took a deep breath while looking intoxicated with a euphoric happiness. Animal. Lin Feng's facial expression was ice-cold. Mo Tsonglan, who had helped with the destruction of the Yunhai sect, had surprisingly learnt such demonic skills. That evil skill enabled the cultivator to swallow blood, flesh and pure qi. Once all these things had been extracted from the cultivator, they turned into a pile of skin and bones. That evil skill enabled the cultivator to swallow blood, flesh and pure qi. Once all these things had been extracted from the cultivator, they turned into a pile of skin and bones. Besides, Mo Tsonglan had immediately swallowed everything without hesitation. How evil was that? Even though cultivators were usually ready to do most things to become stronger, they still set themselves some limits, otherwise, what would be the difference between humans and beasts? Many people couldn't stand thinking about such an evil skill. Of course, there were also many people who were gasping in amazement at the evil skill. If they ever had the opportunity to obtain it, they would be delighted to learn and practice it. This was the world of cultivation, only strength mattered and it came with a price. Mo Tsonglan evilly glanced at Lin Feng and said while laughing, "Don't worry, I'll swallow the old man and then it'll be your turn." When he finished talking, he looked at Mr. Hua. Mr. Hua remained vigilant. Mo Tsonglan's evil skill was way too deviant, Mr. Hua had to be very careful. "Lin Feng, get a bit farther away from here." said Mr. Hua as his body was suddenly surrounded by small balls of fire. They were burning with an intense heat as they rotated around his body. At that moment, he didn't look crooked and sluggish, he looked like a god of fire. These bright and resplendent fireballs contained traces of pure qi. "All right," said Lin Feng while nodding. He moved back. Lin Feng could defeat cultivators of the first or second Xian Qi layer, but the third Xian Qi layer was already too much for him. He wasn't strong enough, therefore he was happy that Mr. Hua was there to fight for him. "Humph, third Xian Qi layer, that'll be a delicious meal," said Mo Tsonglan while smiling evilly. Two vines emerged from his body and moved towards Mr. Hua to constrict his body. However, at that moment, two fireballs appeared in Mr. Hua's hands. He raised both of his hands and these two fireballs transformed into two dragons which immediately bombarded the atmosphere, moving straight towards these vines. Surprisingly, the vines started burning when coming into contact with the fire dragons. On the other side, Bing He-teng was attacking as well. Snowflakes were fluttering in the wind, ice and frost were gradually covering the ground. It was his world of ice and snow skill which really caused the atmosphere to turn into a world of ice and snow. However, that terrifying coldness didn't affect Meng Qing at all, she did not feel cold. Actually, that attack had the opposite effect and even gave Meng Qing a pleasant and refreshing feeling. That pure and holy girl looked like a celestial being. Meng Qing was an expert when it came to ice. How could ice and snow energy affect her? It only made her stronger. "Frozen earth," said Bing He-teng in a low voice. Immediately, a layer of white ice and frost covered the ground. It was becoming thicker and thicker. The entire atmosphere had turned into a frozen world. How cold! The crowd was shaking. People of the Ice and Snow Mountain Village were experts at using ice and snow-based skills. Obviously, it wasn't just a rumor, that frozen world skill was monstrously powerful. Meng Qing's silhouette flickered. She elegantly jumped into the air. Immediately after, an explosion sound resonated in the atmosphere. The ice where she was just standing had exploded. Many icicles shot up from the ground at that moment. Everybody was narrowing their eyes. Bing He-teng had made icicles to burst from the ground. He had used the ice from ground under Meng Qing's feet to carry out a surprise attack. What a sly method. "Celestial ice," said Bing He-teng while shaking both his hands. Ice and snow were blotting out the sky. It seemed like everything had become ice and snow. "Endless frost," said Meng Qing. A layer of ice qi immediately appeared in the air. In a flash, both her and Bing He-teng's bodies were covered with frost. The atmosphere was filled with an endless coldness which made everybody shake. Lin Feng was looking at the two battles which contained 4 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer who were fighting with each other. Mr. Hua and Mo Tsonglan had both broken through to the 3rd Xian Qi layer. Besides, they both had lots of experience. Considering their respective ages, they were both seniors in the world of cultivation. Mr. Hua's 2 fireballs were fluttering in the wind in a rhythm with his heartbeats. Mo Tsonglan's vines were unable to approach Mr. Hua's fireballs. It would be very difficult for Mo Tsonglan to defeat Mr. Hua. Besides, even though Meng Qing didn't have the same experience as her opponent, Lin Feng wasn't worried about her. Her body filled with a powerful ice qi. How could she be scared of ice and frost? Besides, she was extremely strong. Lin Feng didn't clearly understand how strong she was because each time he saw her fight, it seemed like she was stronger than the previous time. It seemed like the people of the Condor Castle organization and the Ice and Snow Mountain Village would all be very busy fighting on that day. The crowd also had the impression that things were changing too fast. The features of the terrain were constantly undergoing drastic changes. Besides, each time they thought that Lin Feng was going to get killed, it wasn't happening at all. The scariest part was that the people of the Condor Castle organization were even working together against Lin Feng, but Lin Feng was, as always, able to shock everyone. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the people who had come along with Bing Hiteng. On his face appeared a cold and evil smile. Amongst these people, none of them were at the Xian Qi layer. When these people saw that Lin Feng was looking at them, their facial expressions became rigid. Immediately after, a cold energy enveloped their bodies. Lin Feng wants to kill them. The hearts of these people on white horses started to pound. Lin Feng was able to defeat a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer. Fighting him was way too dangerous for them. Lin Feng started moving and slowly walked towards them. All these people's bodies went stiff with fear. "What are you planning on doing?" said a member of the Ice and Snow Mountain village towards Lin Feng. Immediately after, fear appeared on his face. "What am I doing?" A mocking expression appeared on his face. All these people had traveled over such a huge distance for the sole purpose of killing him, and now, they were asking him what he was planning on doing. These people wanted to kill him, of course that Lin Feng planned to kill them in return. Nobody spoke any more nonsense. Behind Lin Feng's body appeared a vast and roaring purple lake which hovered in the air. "It doesn't look good." When the people of the Ice and Snow Mountain village saw the purple spirit emerge, their facial expressions changed drastically. Lin Feng's spirit was enough to constrict a cultivator of the Xian Qi layer, so it was obviously strong enough to use against them. They turned their horses around and they wanted to leave. They didn't intend to fight back at all. Lin Feng smiled coldly, his spirit launched itself through the air. Countless small purple snakes emerged and attacked at the speed of light. In a flash, the small snakes had constricted their bodies and immediately after the purple lake swallowed them. They were all drowning into the immense purple lake. "Ah!" Horrible shrieks spread through the atmosphere. These members of the Ice and Snow Mountain village were drowning in the lake and their bodies were melting as if the lake was acid. They were desperately and hopelessly shouting in agony as their skin and flesh was melting. Did they want to die? They had come with the great elder of the Ice and Snow Mountain village, Bing Hiteng, how majestic. However, something they had never imagined, even in their dreams, was that a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer would become their worst nightmare in Celestial River. "Will you dare?" At that moment, Bing Hiteng's voice was ice-cold as he watched the scene unfold. He had brought all the outstanding disciples with him, he had brought them to acquire experience and Lin Feng was going to kill them all. Bing Hiteng left Meng Qin behind and threw himself towards Lin Feng at full speed while releasing a vast amount of ice qi. However, Meng Qin wouldn't let him touch Lin Feng. Both her hands shook, her soul was palpitating from nervousness. Meng Qin's body released a gigantic amount of ice qi. The crowd could even see her nervous expression. "Frozen heart," said Meng Qin. The strength of her ice qi bombarded the atmosphere. Bing Hiteng started shaking violently. He abruptly turned around, however, at that moment, he groaned in agony. His black hair was covered with frost. "You want to kill me but you thought that I wouldn't dare to offend you. What world would that even be possible?" said Lin Feng coldly as his purple spirit moved back inside his body. However, all the members of the Ice and Snow Mountain village had disappeared from sight and there was no traces of them to be found. Bing Hiteng's face turned deathly pale. His face was filled with murderous intent. However, at that moment, he was fighting against Meng Qin. Immediately after, his killing intent became even more intense. Meng Qin, as before, was preventing him from approaching Lin Feng. Her eyes were filled with calm and serenity. Her heart seemed like it was made of ice. The members of the Ice and Snow Village Mountain have been massacred for offending Lin Feng, thought the crowd. At the beginning, they had come for the sole purpose of killing Lin Feng, but in the end, they were the ones who had been killed. After that, Bing Hiteng tried to kill Lin Feng, but at that moment, he was injured by Meng Qin. Besides, all his most outstanding disciples had been killed. The Ice and Snow Mountain village wasn't the only group which had been punished for offending Lin Feng, the Condor Castle organization had suffered as well. The two vice leaders of the Condor Castle organization were both at the Xian Qi lair. The first one had entered the restaurant and was killed. He hadn't even seen how he died. Then, the bald leader had been defeated by Lin Feng and was killed under tragic circumstances, becoming a cultivation resource for Mo Lan's demonic body. At that moment, the members of the Condor Castle organization were terrified. Maybe tomorrow, their group would only be a memory in Celestial River. Everything was happening because they tried to kill Lin Feng, a young man at the Ling Qi lair. Those who offended him ended up dead. He was an amazing genius. He had even almost cut off one of Lang Yu's arms, the best disciple of the Hao Yu sect, for using a blade in front of him. He had destroyed the Blademaster's confidence in his own ability to use blades. Lin Feng was like an evil deity. The battle continued in a deadlock. Mo Lan and Mr. Hua's battle was tough and fierce. An evil Qi and a fire Qi were bombarding each other, but the battle seemed to be very evenly matched. It was hard to tell who would win. The battle continued in a deadlock. Mo Lan and Mr. Hua's battle was tough and fierce. An evil Qi and a fire Qi were bombarding each other, but the battle seemed to be very evenly matched. It was hard to tell who would win. Mo Lan's skills were evil. Mr. Hua's skills were precise. Bing Heting's cultivation level was higher than Meng Qing's, but her fighting power had exceeded all expectations. Besides, a moment ago, he turned his back to her, which led to him being injured by her attack. Bing Heting couldn't do anything against Meng Qing. Concerning the members of the Condor Castle organization, they did not want to go near Lin Feng. They didn't dare to draw his attention. His purple spirit was way too terrifying. It could swallow people and then melt them into nothing. How monstrous was that? It seems like Lin Feng is not going to die today, thought the crowd. He was so strong that Bing Heting and Mo Lan, who were acting together, couldn't even kill him. Was this because destiny said he would not die today, or was it because they were not strong enough to kill him? Mr. Hua and Meng Qing could take the two strongest opponents, while Lin Feng, who was gifted and strong, didn't fear fighting against the lower Xian Qi layer cultivators. Therefore, all the opponents, who all belonged to influential groups, couldn't touch him. While the crowd was analyzing the situation, far away in the distance, appeared a white palanquin. On that white palanquin was a woman wearing a fine gauze on her face. 4 people were carrying that palanquin. At the same time, behind that palanquin, many people were running at full speed with only the tips of their toes touching the ground. They looked so graceful, and they didn't even look like they were hurrying. It seemed like they lightly floated above the ground, which gave the crowd a surrealistic impression, as if it was a dream. In a flash, the group of silhouettes arrived to where the battle was taking place. They didn't join the battle though. The crowd was stupefied. Who were these people and what did they want this time? However, Lan Jiao, who was in the crowd, was surprised. Her silhouette flickered and she landed in front of the palanquin. She then said to the woman, "Aunt Yun, why are you here?" Aunt Yun removed her fine gauze and a beautiful mature woman's face appeared. She looked graceful and noble, cold and detached. She looked superior to other people to the extent that some people didn't dare look at her. "I came to solve some problems," said Aunt Yun while smiling. Immediately after, she looked at Lin Feng, who looked surprised because he was also looking at her. That woman didn't look young, but her skin looked splendid. Besides, she looked extremely elegant and her strength seemed exceptional. "Lin Feng, right?" said that mature woman to Lin Feng. "Indeed," said Lin Feng while nodding, and added, "Is there a problem?" "There is a problem," said the mature woman while nodding, and continued, "Lin Feng, last time at the Dream Pavilion, you obtained an ancient cauldron. It's useless for you and we would like to take it back. We will give you your purity stones back. How does that sound?" The ancient dragon cauldron. Lin Feng was stupefied. These people had come because of the ancient dragon cauldron. Lin Feng couldn't help but have a bad feeling. That woman was speaking in the name of the Dream Pavilion. She was obviously one of the management members. She had, against all expectations, come because of the dragon cauldron. She had likely found out what kind of item it was. In the frame of the auction, there is no rule which says that items have to be returned under any circumstance. Said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent while looking at his interlocutor. He was obviously not willing to hand the cauldron over. The crowd was also puzzled. Lin Feng was right. Since when did the people of the auction have the right to ask people to return acquired objects? That was impossible. Lin Feng, with the highest bid, had gained the cauldron, which now belonged to him. The story was fishy. I can give you the double amount of purity stones for it to compensate for the loss. Said Aunt Yun, sounding patient and calm. The double amount? Was the ancient dragon cauldron worth only 4,000 purity stones of medium quality? It was one of the 10 ancient cauldrons. It was priceless. It was a real treasure. No need. I don't need purity stones. I like the cauldron very much. Said Lin Feng indifferently. The cauldron was his. He didn't need to justify himself. Lin Feng, you bought that cauldron for 2,000, now, I will give you 10,000 and you will give it back to me. Continued Aunt Yun. I said that I like my cauldron, and no matter how many purity stones you offer, I will not exchange it. Said Lin Feng in a strict and firm manner which made a strange expression appear on the woman's face. Aunt Yun, what's wrong? Said Lan Jiao, who felt that something was amiss. It seemed like something bad was about to happen between Aunt Yun and Lin Feng. Jiao, this has nothing to do with you. Said Aunt Yun indifferently. Immediately after, she looked at Lin Feng again and said, that cauldron is of no use for you. However, we need it. I hope that you can hand it over to the Dream Pavilion. We will inevitably be very grateful. Lin Feng, as before, shook his head. Finally, the woman's patience reached its limits. A cold energy appeared around her body, which made Lan Jiao shiver. What a tragedy! You don't know how to distinguish good from evil. Said Aunt Yun in a low voice. She could see the look on Lan Jiao's face was sad because of what was going to happen, but Lin Feng didn't recognize other people's kindness. What if I want the item no matter what? Added Aunt Yun. Lin Feng was surprised. He then coldly said, the Dream Pavilion sells things that other people have put up for auction. You, the Dream Pavilion, are just in charge of the selling. I obtained something, you gave the purity stones to the owner, but now, you come to me and ask me for the cauldron on behalf of the Dream Pavilion. What is that supposed to mean? When the woman heard Lin Feng, she remained unmoved. She just said coldly, all I'm saying is that you have to hand over the ancient cauldron or you will regret it, the consequences will be terrible. When the crowd heard the woman, they were astonished. Problems were occurring one after the other for Lin Feng. He didn't even have the time to solve the old problems and new ones were arising already. The Dream Pavilion surprisingly also wanted to fight against Lin Feng, but these people's strengths were much more terrifying than that of the Condor Castle organization. Since when are the people of the Dream Pavilion so shameless? Said Mr. Hu jokingly. Fireballs were still emerging from his hand and rotating around him. He left Emotsang Lan behind and moved back to Lin Feng. He was aggressively staring at Aunt Yun. I didn't know that the Dream Pavilion was so greedy. If other people tried to steal items obtained at the auction, I wouldn't be surprised, but you, the Dream Pavilion, I am not expecting you to protect the people who obtain items at your auction, I can understand that, but stealing those items yourself, don't you care about face? Many people secretly nodded when they heard Mr. Hu. Indeed, these people's behavior was way too exaggerated. That treasure had been obtained at their auction, they should protect their reputation instead of trying to steal from their own customers. Ha ha ha. Laughed Emotsang Lan. He glanced at Aunt Yun, smiled evilly and said, whether they are shameless or not will not be a problem for you once you're dead, stop talking nonsense. Did you hear him? Said Aunt Yun to Lin Feng coldly. I don't want to kill you, if you obey and hand over the cauldron, I will not get involved, but if you don't. Aunt Yun! Shouted Lan Jiao, whose face had turned deathly pale. Aunt Yun originally wanted Lin Feng and her to become friends, but at that moment, she surprisingly was making an enemy and threatening to kill Lin Feng. Jiao Jiao, I already told you that all this is none of your business, said Aunt Yun, sounding cold. Lan Jiao bit her lip and remained silent. The Condor Castle organization and the Ice and Snow Mountain Village hadn't managed to touch Lin Feng. Could it be that the last group was going to manage what the others hadn't? The situation was clear to Lan Jiao. If Aunt Yun fought against Lin Feng, it would be a one-sided battle in her favor and Lin Feng would have no opportunity to escape the combined forces. At that moment, Meng Qing and Bing Heting stopped fighting and Meng Qing moved back to Lin Feng's side. Lin Feng's facial expression was ice-cold. Lin Feng was constantly being threatened in Celestial River. These people were all influential and powerful, which is why they could threaten Lin Feng as much as they wished, because his strength still was not enough to deter these powerful groups. If Lin Feng had been extremely powerful, who would have dared speak to him that way? They even wanted to steal the treasure he had obtained at the auction. Very good, said Lin Feng while looking at Aunt Yun. An evil smile appeared on his face and he said coldly, "You are very strong, which makes you think that you can threaten me whenever you want. If I don't give you what you want, you will kill me. You are convinced that the ancient cauldron is already yours, right?" Aunt Yun frowned and saw that Lin Feng's smile was becoming more and more evil, and he then said, "Everybody has heard her words clearly. You now all know how shameless the people of the Dream Pavilion are. Surprisingly, they want to steal the ancient cauldron that I obtained in their establishment." Aunt Yun was stupefied and then said coldly, "Shut up. Shut up. You threatened me with death and now you want me to keep quiet about it. Do you think that the cauldron will automatically become yours once I die? You are naive, ridiculous and utterly moronic," said Lin Feng while smiling indifferently. He then shouted at the top of his lungs, "I have obtained an ancient cauldron which is surprisingly one of the 10 legendary cauldrons from the stories. The ancient cauldron is actually the cauldron of the heavenly dragons." One of the 10 legendary cauldrons from the stories, the ancient cauldron is actually the cauldron of the heavenly dragons. Lin Feng's voice was echoing through the atmosphere. One of the 10 legendary cauldrons from the stories, the ancient cauldron is actually the cauldron of the heavenly dragons. Lin Feng's voice was echoing through the atmosphere. People's hearts started to violently pound. Legendary cauldrons were extremely precious. Even though they didn't know what the true name, Heavenly Dragon of the Nine Skies, or exactly what it meant, considering the name, they could imagine its price. It seemed to be a priceless treasure from ancient times. The Dream Pavilion doesn't care about violating the rules. They have come to steal a treasure. The crowd had no doubts when it came to Lin Feng's words. On that day, many people had seen Lin Feng come out of the Dream Pavilion with his legendary cauldron. But surprisingly, at that moment, the Dream Pavilion surprisingly wanted to have it back. Obviously, that ancient cauldron was priceless. Otherwise, the Dream Pavilion wouldn't care. The crowd was filled with excitement. They wished they could have obtained such an item. Mr. Huo glanced at Lin Feng. Fire was burning in his eyes. He was an alchemist, he concocted pills. He had already heard about these legendary cauldrons, once or twice. These cauldrons all had a common point: they could be used by alchemists to concoct powerful pills and were all priceless. When using an ordinary cauldron, one could only concoct Xian-level pills of lower quality, while when using the cauldron of the heavenly dragons, one could concoct Xian-level pills of medium quality or above. Even though it was only a slight improvement in quality, it still made a huge difference. It was the difference between day and night. For example, Xian-level pills of lower quality could be used by cultivators between the first and the third Xian-Qi layer, while Xian-level pills of medium quality could be used by cultivators between the fourth and sixth Xian-Qi layer. That was a 3-layer difference. Therefore, it was a huge difference. Ha ha ha. Mo Tsang was laughing demonically. The more he used his evil skill, the more evil and sinister he became. He didn't look like a human being anymore. He realized that he was interested in the cauldron of the heavenly dragons as well. He was as interested in the cauldron as he was in killing Lin Feng. Bing He-teng was astonished as well. If the Ice and Snow Mountain village could obtain such a treasure, how beneficial would it be? No. If I had such a treasure, would I even need to go back to the sect? Bing He-teng was secretly excited. If he had such a treasure and went back to the sect, the treasure wouldn't be his anymore, it would become the property of the Ice and Snow Mountain village. Besides, considering the strength of the Ice and Snow Mountain village, maybe they wouldn't be able to protect the cauldron. It would be too hard to protect it. Maybe when it came to such a heavy responsibility, it was best to leave Xueyu and take the treasure with him. Everybody was already dreaming about getting the heavenly dragon cauldron. All the strong cultivators were wondering why they weren't the ones who bought the cauldron, even though they had never even thought about it. At that moment, Aunt Yun looked glum. Before arriving, she hadn't thought that Lin Feng would know about the heavenly dragon cauldron, which is why she had offered a high price in the beginning, but later on, whatever the price, Lin Feng kept refusing over and over again. Therefore, she had guessed that Lin Feng probably knew about the cauldron. Besides, she had threatened Lin Feng's life, but it hadn't been enough, Lin Feng had made the truth publicly known. That was a great loss for her. Even if she obtained the cauldron, she wouldn't necessarily be able to leave Xueyu. Everybody would quickly know about the heavenly dragon cauldron. Everybody will know about the treasure if I obtain it, thought Aunt Yun. She was staring at Lin Feng and her face was filled with murder. You want to kill me? Lin Feng had a cold smile on his face and immediately said, Mo Tsang Lan, Bing He-teng, I know that you all want to kill me, but even if you kill me, have you thought about who would get the treasure? Lin Feng sounded cold and indifferent. Mo Tsang Lan and Bing He-teng remained silent. The Dream Pavilion was one of the 3 biggest marketplaces in Celestial River. They had such a large power and influence that the Condor Castle couldn't rival them. All the objects that appeared in their auction room were treasures, yet no one dared to try and steal the treasures. They certainly were extremely strong. However, if we kill the people of the Dream Pavilion first, we can solve our personal problems after, then we won't be bothered by a stronger third party. Wouldn't that be a better solution? Said Lin Feng. In the world, there were no definite enemies, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Even though Mo Tsang Lan and Bing He-teng wanted to kill him and Lin Feng also wanted to kill them, he knew that if they acted at the same time as the Dream Pavilion, he wouldn't have a single chance. Lin Feng was just trying to create tension between them, so that they would, at least, not collaborate to kill him. Lin Feng, Lan Jiao was looking at Lin Feng while unceasingly shaking her head. She hadn't thought that Aunt Yun and Lin Feng would fight each other to death. She wants to kill me, should I let her kill me without retaliation? Said Lin Feng sounding indifferent while looking at Lan Jiao, which made her speechless. Aunt Yun wanted to kill Lin Feng, what could Lin Feng do? He had no choice but to return his killing intent. When Bing He-teng heard Lin Feng, lights flashed in his eyes. Lin Feng was right. Even if they collaborated with Aunt Yun and killed Lin Feng, they were in Celestial River, they weren't at the Ice and Snow Mountain village. Even if they obtained the heavenly dragon cauldron, they wouldn't be able to leave with it as long as the Dream Pavilion wanted it. Ha ha ha. Mo Tsang Lan was laughing evilly. He then said, I will not join anyone. Old fool. Cursed Lin Feng. Mo Tsang Lan was really evil. He didn't wait for Bing He-teng, who wasn't as strong as him, to reply and had given his answer. If the two didn't help, Lin Feng and the people of the Dream Pavilion would fight. The other two would just sit and watch them fight and then attack the winner. Then, it didn't matter whether it was Lin Feng or the Dream Pavilion who won, they would inevitably be injured. However, even they didn't help, Lin Feng's goal was to get rid of the two cultivators of the third Xian Qi layer and then fight against the people of the Dream Pavilion. Ant Yun, at that moment, was staring at Lin Feng. From the stories, he was not someone who would lie down and be killed easily, but could it really be that bad? Even though they had only a fraction of the power in Celestial River, they were still strong enough to kill Lin Feng. "Since you want to die, I will help you achieve your aim," said Ant Yun coldly. She then jumped off the palanquin. She was extremely quick. At the same time, the silhouettes of the four cultivators carrying the palanquin flickered. They all landed on her sides. They were releasing a deadly qi. Amongst these four people, who were women, none of them were mediocre cultivators, all of them had broken through to the first Xian Qi layer. The people of the Dream Pavilion are so strong. Lin Feng was stupefied. Ant Yun was extremely powerful when compared to the other women. "You four can kill him and then his ring with the Na stone," said Ant Yun while pointing to Lin Feng. She sounded indifferent. Lin Feng had no power or influence in Celestial River, he couldn't just walk away with the precious treasure when there were stronger people present. That was why these four people were here to kill Lin Feng. "I will handle these two," said Ant Yun while rolling up her sleeves. Her silhouette flickered and in a flash, she appeared in front of Mr. Hua and Meng Qing. Her long sleeves were fluttering in the wind. In a flash, an endless quantity of illusions appeared. It seemed like there was an endless quantity of clones. In a flash, Meng Qing and Mr. Hua's silhouettes had disappeared. Third Xian Qi layer. Mo Tsanglan and Bing Hiteng had lots of experience, they could, obviously, sense other people's strength. They could see that that woman had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer like them, however, she had immediately challenged Meng Qing and Mr. Hua, alone. Those two could rival Mo Tsanglan and Bing Hiteng in power. What a strong and aggressive woman. People's hearts were pounding. After that move, it seemed like she was the only person in the entire world. Ant Yun's 1,000 illusions skill is becoming stronger and stronger, whispered Lan Jiao. She was lost though because she already had feelings for Lin Feng, but at that moment, Ant Yun wanted to kill him. In the middle of a whistling hurricane, Meng Qing and Mr. Hua had recovered from the illusions. These 1,000 illusions didn't emit any sound but everybody could feel the terrifying power in the attack. A careless move and it was easy to get severely injured in the middle of such an attack, or even die in a pitiful manner. At that moment, the four women also attacked. Their sleeves were fluttering in the wind. Like illusions, in a flash, they surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng was unable to escape even if he grew wings. Boom! Coldness invaded the entire atmosphere. Lin Feng frowned and raised his head and looked at the three silhouettes fighting. It seemed like Meng Qing was furious. She wanted to leave the 1,000 illusions and join Lin Feng. "Meng Qing, don't worry about me," shouted Lin Feng. It was clear to Lin Feng that Meng Qing was ready to do anything for him. Besides, he even knew that Meng Qing had a strange ability to increase her power several-fold when needed, but using it created an infinite coldness which invaded her body. He didn't want Meng Qing to use it. Lin Feng preferred to suffer alone. "It's my turn." Lin Feng took a deep breath. 100 surplus souls emerged. Around his body was releasing a terrifying qi. A strange light flashed in these four women's eyes. Their sleeves fluttered in the wind while they all started to punch towards Lin Feng. Punches were moving towards Lin Feng from all four sides. A strange light flashed in these four women's eyes. Their sleeves fluttered in the wind while they all started to punch towards Lin Feng. Punches were moving towards Lin Feng from all four sides. These women had all broken through to the Xian Qi layer. Even though they had just broken through to the first Xian Qi layer, their opponent was only a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer. Aunt Yun had assigned 4 people to kill Lin Feng because she wanted to make sure that Lin Feng would die. She didn't want to waste time and let more troubles arise. A soft and pliable pure qi was whistling in the atmosphere and moving straight towards Lin Feng. An ordinary cultivator of the Ling Qi layer wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack such as this. SSSSS. Lin Feng's purple spirit transformed into a gigantic purple dragon. It was 12 meters high. It curled up around Lin Feng's body and moved Lin Feng onto its head. In a flash, Lin Feng appeared 12 meters high in the air looking down on everybody. What a monstrous spirit! When the crowd saw that gigantic purple dragon, they were astonished. However, they didn't know what kind of spirit it was exactly that Lin Feng had, but it looked extremely strong. At that moment, Lin Feng's eyes were slightly closed. He was, as before, releasing a terrifyingly powerful qi. His surplus souls were floating above his dragon spirit. Die! Shouted the 4 women on the ground. They jumped up in the air and threw themselves towards Lin Feng. Release! Said Lin Feng in a low voice. A terrifying qi invaded the entire atmosphere. The purple dragon started shaking violently and it raised its head high into the air. SSSSS, the dragon was unleashing a dragon chant. Its 2 eyes, which looked enormous, became even scarier. At the same time, its body became even bigger, it became monstrously gigantic. That small dragon that was like a snake now transformed and looked like a terrifying purple dragon. SSSSSSSSS, the dragon howled in fury. Its head rushed towards the 4 women with its huge mouth wide open. It wanted to swallow them. Animal! Furiously shouted Aunt Yun while looking at Lin Feng. She left Meng Qing and Mr. Hua and attempted to rush over to Lin Feng. She had thought that these 4 women, with their strength, would need only a few seconds to kill Lin Feng, but she hadn't thought that Lin Feng had other plans. Lin Feng was full of mysteries and surprises. Stay here, said Mr. Hua furiously. If she wanted to fight, they had to fight, and if she wanted to leave, she thought that she could leave as she pleased. Mr. Hua, old as he was, couldn't tolerate that. That was a huge humiliation. A fire light streaked through the sky towards Aunt Yun like a fireball. Aunt Yun was startled for a few seconds. She couldn't deal with Lin Feng, she abruptly turned around and saw the fireball move towards her at full speed. Boom! The fireballs exploded in the atmosphere. Immediately after, the atmosphere became extremely cold. Meng Qing had arrived as well. Crackling and explosion sounds were uninterruptedly spreading through the air. In a flash, it seemed like the atmosphere had gone from intense heat to freezing coldness. The fireballs were surrounded by ice. Ice and fire, when working together, increased in strength. Lin Feng was on the other side in the air. At that moment, he was on the enormous tail of the dragon. Besides, the gigantic purple dragon opened its colossal mouth and immediately swallowed one of the 4 women and she was instantly eaten alive. One cultivator of the Xian Qi layer had just died. At that moment, the dragon didn't look like a spirit anymore. It looked like a real terrifying dragon, as if it was alive. How could a spirit be alive? The crowd was astonished. The spirit was something innate and was a part of the soul. It played an important role in the path of cultivation. It could be used to enhance techniques or enlightenment during battles. When the cultivation level increased, the spirit became stronger as well. However, they believed the spirit was just a support for the cultivator and did not have life. They had never seen Lin Feng's spirit before and it seemed like it had a life of its own. At that moment, Lin Feng was on the tail of the dragon and had his eyes closed. Besides, the pupils of the dragon were filled with endless coldness. If you want to kill me, just try it. People's hearts were pounding. They had the impression that their heads were exploding in shock. That voice had come from the mouth of the dragon. However, it was Lin Feng's voice. It's Lin Feng. That purple dragon is Lin Feng. The crowd was dumbstruck. They looked at these gigantic eyes, which looked expressionless and incredibly cold. These eyes were those of a human. Lin Feng could control his spirit and bring it to life. Phew. People in the crowd took a deep breath. How scary. Lin Feng had absolute control over his spirit. People in the crowd were not the ones who were astonished, those few extremely strong cultivators of the Xian Qi layer were all astonished. Lin Feng's abilities were very mysterious. Mo Tsanglan's face was filled with evil intentions. What a great method. He definitely wanted that ability as well. Lin Feng was a priceless treasure to him. At that moment, the three women of the Xian Qi layer managed to free themselves from the attacks of the purple dragon and landed onto the ground. They were breathing quickly and felt cold in their hearts. What a terrifying young man. They were not the only ones who thought that Lin Feng was terrifying, everybody thought the same. So that's how it was, he had killed the two vice leaders of the Condor Castle organization without using his full strength. No wonder he didn't fear them and was determined to stay in Celestial River. However, Lin Feng hadn't expected so many people would keep attacking him one after the other when he was dealing with Condor Castle. First, it was the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, then the Dream Pavilion, they all wanted to kill him. Fortunately, Mr. Hua was there to help. The purple dragon was fixedly staring at the people down on the ground. When Lin Feng was at the Golden Z Mountain in Mou, the cultivators of the Z government used a purple energy. They could control their spirits and increase the strength of their spirit. This is what Lin Feng was using. He had obtained the memories of the cultivator of the Zun Qi layer and spent 6 months practicing in secret. He had learnt the how to use surplus souls and could now already make 100 surplus souls appear, which all contained the power of his soul. He was combining that power with the power of his spirit, thus, when using these surplus souls and injecting them into his spirit, he could bring his spirit into reality and it would become monstrously strong. If he had only relied on the strength of a single soul and tried to control his spirit, his dragon would have been strong but it wouldn't have been enough to defeat these 4 women of the Xian Qi layer. Therefore, he had used all of his surplus souls to inject them into his spirit and increase its strength. His snake thus had even more power as well. That splendid method was called the Ode to the Spirit. Die, shouted Lin Feng coldly. Immediately after, the dragon rushed through the atmosphere with a whistling sound. The purple lake from before had been entirely swallowed by Lin Feng's snake spirit and that purple lake turned out to be the blood of a Zun-level dragon. Besides, there were the remnants of its willpower and determination in that blood. The gigantic dragon moved, it seemed like the entire world was under the pressure of that terrifying creature. Fear invaded the heart of these 3 female cultivators of the Xian Qi layer. That gigantic snake definitely had the strength of a Xian-level beast. Besides, it was also extremely brutal, violent, and agile. Concerning the women, they were experts at creating illusions. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be very useful against Lin Feng's spirit. Asterisk. Cursed the 3 women furiously. Their silhouettes flickered and many illusions appeared floating above the ground. The crowd was dazzled and felt they were hallucinating after seeing so many illusions. Fools! Shouted Lin Feng's furious voice and his eyes were as cold as before. He was determined and tenacious, there wasn't the least bit of hesitation in his actions. Illusions? They probably didn't know that at this moment, Lin Feng's purple dragon spirit was filled with the power of several surplus souls. Lin Feng's eyes were closed and he was in fusion with the earth. He could see through the illusions clearly in his mind, therefore so could all of his surplus souls. Ah! 2 piercingly sharp shrieks emerged. A huge quantity of illusions vanished. 2 female cultivators of the Xian Qi layer had just disappeared after being swallowed by the purple dragon. The arrogant female cultivator of the Xian Qi layer who was standing in front of the dragon seemed absolutely tiny and insignificant, at least in comparison with the dragon. There was only one left, from the 4 female cultivators of the first Xian Qi layer, only one was left. She was standing there looking at that gigantic creature and shaking. She had just seen her 3 sisters being swallowed by the spirit. How could she not be terrified? Her determination and willpower had already been crushed. The monstrous and gigantic spirit was coldly staring at her. She was getting more and more frightened with each second. Finally, she decided to give up and turned around to run. She didn't want to fight anymore. She wanted to escape. A cultivator of the Xian Qi layer wasn't fighting anymore, she wanted to flee. Unfortunately, she didn't have the possibility of escaping. The gigantic dragon started moving as if in a frenzy. In a flash, he swallowed her body, which immediately disappeared. With that, the 4 female cultivators of the Xian Qi layer had all died. Boom! A violent and heavy wave of energy spread through the air. Aunt Yun moved away from Mr. Hua and Meng Qing. When she saw that the 4th female cultivators had disappeared, a horrible and evil expression appeared on her face. You killed them all. Her face was distorted with murderous intentions. She didn't look calm and indifferent anymore. Not only did I kill them, but I will also kill everyone else from the Dream Pavilion, said the purple dragon, sounding ice cold. When you came to kill me, you should have prepared for death. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.